Welcome back to the Rodcast. Creeping closer and closer to the weekend. That means we got a lot of football to discuss, ladies and gentlemen. Matter of fact, we got football tonight to discuss. We'll talk about the NFC East showdown between the Eagles and the Commanders. We'll get into previewing that today. Also, the latest availability report for the SEC came out. So we'll talk about what Longhorns and what Razorbacks find themselves on the availability report and what kind of impact that could have on the matchup between Texas and Arkansas. As a matter of fact, we'll continue to break down Texas and Arkansas and get into that matchup, the X's and O's, and dive deeper into it. We'll also get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. The Cowboys, or at least Cowboys fans, they're doing some deep dives, some rabbit hole research, if you will, on Jerry Jones' statement about the stadium and how the glare of the sun is not an impediment and not a distraction to the team. We'll get into that because they're throwing some of the facts in Jerry Jones's face. We'll dive into that a little bit later on in the show. We also will get into some of the big NFL matchups this weekend. You got the Ravens versus the Steelers. That's a big one. You also will have the Chiefs versus the Bills. That's another big game. Tonight's a big game, of course. We'll wait a little bit on the Texans and the Cowboys, but we'll actually hear from CJ Stroud and Michael Parsons. You know, they're really good friends, both Texans and Cowboys players, probably the most high profile of those members of their team. And they've been talking some trash leading up to this matchup, at least early on in the offseason they were. So we'll get into that and play some of that. There is a huge boxing event happening this weekend. We'll get into that too, because that right now there's some speculation by the wise guys in Vegas that could be one of the most bet sporting events in recent American history. Yeah, I'm not making that up. We'll get into that and talk about that too. All of that, and of course your usual favorites. We got what the facts, what the stats. We got who said that. We got off the record. We got Raj Rent coming up a little bit later on as well. So we're jam packed on the show. Before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the Aryan family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Ready to kick it off on a Thursday morning as we inch closer to the weekend. Going to be a very good weekend. I can feel it. Yeah, we get the Tyson fight on Friday. We get Texas getting retribution on Arkansas on Saturday. Watch Texas basketball just dominate Mississippi Valley State, or and then women's basketball goes out and dominates again on Sunday. Just a good weekend. Just a good weekend of sports. Right. I feel it's coming. So we'll be excited for a good weekend of sports. And we got a good game tonight too.
Good game tonight, and I'm with you. I'm just hoping, and at least I don't have to worry about the Texans bouncing back. But I'm sure that on Monday,
we don't even have to worry about the Texans or the Cowboys on this weekend either.
That's true. No stress Monday. With that.
No,
you just need to
on Monday, just kind of pretend and look. One of the teams wants to win, and one of the teams should be okay with losing. I get you don't want to, and look,
but tank mode. You should be in tank mode.
Cowboys fans can all agree with this. It will be hilarious if we could make Jerry Jones cry again.
I agree.
I think most Cowboys fans would be on board with that.
I want to say there have been 5 teams that have made him cry. There have been 5 times, and Texas were one of the inaugural season. You're right. Jerry Jones admitted after they lost the inaugural matchup between the Texans and the Cowboys, he cried. He cried that day. I don't think he'll cry because I think he's expecting to lose. He wasn't expecting to lose then, and it just slapped him in the face. He was emotional. And that's usually when it happens, when he doesn't expect to lose. That's when you get to Jerry Jones tears. And a lot of Cowboys fans, I think, I'm with you, Cowboys fans would like to see Jerry Jones cry right now. They would.
But we don't want to see him dap his tears with $100 bills. So that makes it less.
Jerry Jones probably got some different bills too. He got access to different stuff that we don't. Him and Elon, they got access to stuff we don't have access to. No, you're right about that. Good point. We don't worry about the Cowboys and the Texans. We'll talk a little bit about it, but we got time for that. But you got some great matchups over the weekend that we can get into.
It's going to be very much fun. Let me introduce my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is a new Rod Father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I know that a lot of people have talked about this Tyson Jake Paul fight. I'm telling you guys, I said it when they first announced it. I was like, oh, yeah, it's whatever the numbers. I don't know how they were going to do it at the time. It's going to be on Netflix. So I don't know how they're going to calculate all the numbers or whatever. So it's not pay-per-view numbers like it usually is. But It's going to be huge, guys.
Yeah.
I know you don't want it to be because it's it's more of an indictment on our society and our taste in sports. But I'm telling you, the numbers are going to be big, and I'm going to watch it. I'll admit that I'm going to check it out and watch it. But I didn't realize it. I'll just give you the factoid right now before we dive into the show. They expect it to be the most bet on boxing match in Bet MGM history.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Because you don't have to be a boxing fan to watch this fight. In fact, this fight's probably not for boxing fans.
Half the audience they expect are just going to be people who like Jake Paul or influencers. No, the beauty of it is you're either going to be watching as an old school fan of boxing who wants, because now boxing has become a shell of what it used to be in terms of popularity, and you want to what the nostalgia factor, and you want to watch Mike Tyson beat up just a brat of an influencer who has become now one of the most recognizable names in boxing. And it's crazy how it's happened, but and Mike Tyson actually said he's a fan of it. He's actually reinvented boxing to a certain extent. It kind of brought back the old remember this celebrity boxing matches back in the day? That was a thing. Yep. He has done it, but from an influence level. Now he takes it seriously, he does. But remember, he started out basically kind of boxing other faux celebrities.
Yeah, exactly.
The B and C list celebrities, and then now has kind of talked his way into basically talking enough trash to get actual boxers.
Well, he started to fight MMA fighters that could box a little bit, but he would fight.
Yeah.
So he would get guys who are fighters but not really boxers.
It was a very strategic move. No, he's done a great job of it. He really has. You can say what you want and hate on him as an influencer, which I think a lot of us are hoping Mike Tyson could just has such a punchable face. Most people watching, they want to see Jake Paul get knocked out.
Yeah.
And because he has a punchable face, he knows he's a villain. He embraces being a villain. And it's crazy how Mike Tyson now, who's always been the villain, right? He's always been the villain. Now Mike Tyson he's on the other side of it. It's kind of a reverse heel turn for him. Now everybody's rooting for Mike Tyson because he's the old man. And what is he? 30 years older than Jake Paul?
I mean,
it's something crazy like that. It is. It's wild. I want to say it might be like a close to a 30-year age gap. Now, some of y'all are like, that's crazy. Of course, Mike Tyson's gonna lose if he's 50 plus years old
31.
and he's fighting some dude in his mid-20s.
31. So yeah, Mike Tyson's 58. 31. Jake Paul's 27.
So it's also so many great storylines though, guys. You got the father time storyline. So old people like me are like, man, I hope Mike still got it.
I want him at 58.
You got the young people who are like, oh, hell no, man. These old people are crazy. They think Mike Tyson still got it. Yeah, back in your day. I'm tired of hearing my parents and all these old people talk about back in their day. To hell with your day. This is Jake Paul's day. So they're actually Jake Paul fans. We don't like Jake Paul because we're old. But young people love Jake Paul.
Yeah.
All right. So you got the young versus the old. All right. You got the old regime of boxing, which Mike represents, versus this kind of new reinvention of whatever the hell boxing is now. I don't even really watch much of it, but Jake Paul is a star in boxing. That's all you need to know, all right, about what the sport is. And you, like I said, and you got the old versus the young. I think you got a lot of good storylines in here, man. I do. I think you got a lot of good storylines, and I think the numbers are going to be huge.
Right now. No, I think they will be too. I mean, I'm looking forward to now
because you're watching. Because you're gonna watch too. And you don't watch. You usually don't watch salacious exhibition stuff like this. Usually, you're like, oh no, it's not a real sport. That's not real competition. No. Which this isn't. But they got you.
Well, no, and two, I'll throw in the fact that it's Netflix adds in because then you're like, okay, it's not $120.
It's convenience
because you're like, I feel like watching this isn't going to be as big of a, I'm not at least supporting it in the same way of shelling out $120.
Yeah, that's real support. That's true. You're just paying your Netflix bill.
Yeah, it's Netflix, man. I want to watch some other shows and this.
No, that's true. You don't feel guilt. Like, oh man, you feel like shame.
Yeah,
you don't want to tell people like I purchased a fight. I don't want to.
Well, no, and then you got to buy it, and then you got to have like a party because it's not worth it to do it by yourself. Which means you got to spend more money on snacks and drinks to get everybody. You
don't have to have the party. You can just take. No. You can just. No. You can enjoy that shame on your own.
I'm not spending $120 to watch a fight by myself. It's not happening.
Yeah, no, you're right though. I think that's also a big part of it. But that's also part of the reinvention of boxing.
Yeah.
That we've kind of talked about, right? Because they were like, well, nobody's gonna pay for pay-per-views for that kind of stuff anymore. Nobody, unless the problem with boxing right now is they just need names to sell, recognizable names. Well, and the truth is, say what you want about Jake Paul, You know who the hell he is. We know who the hell he is. And Mike Tyson, say what you want. Yes, 30 years outside of his prime, everybody still knows who Mike Tyson is. So they just need proven commodities.
And they're two separate things, because I know that I know boxing fans that will buy pay-per-views that I don't even know are happening. And they'll still buy those because they have their audience that will buy those. And people who gamble will buy those. So they will have their own audience to do that, but they won't get these giant,
they won't get monster
buys that the other ones get. So there's a different market for it, and that's why it's like on the Fight Network or what's it, DAZN or whatever those are, that are like smaller providers that are streaming, because it's cheaper to do that than try and put it on big networks now and try and do that. So there's
I totally agree. I remember it used to be on like HBO and Showtime. They were invested in boxing. Yes. That's when I was still into it. When it was, I was like, oh man, that's when I was invested in it, because and you know what? Getting back to Netflix point, it was accessibility. I mean, I could just turn on Showtime, turn on HBO, like, oh, I'm watching the big fights, whatever they are. Now you're right. You got to go out of your way now, if you're kind of a novice fan, to kind of find whatever the big matches are. And I think ultimately they lack the name, and they lack the brand power to sell boxing right now to a mass audience. Yes, of course it has its audience, but to the masses, to the folks who aren't necessarily following it on a day-to-day basis. And Mike Tyson brings those people back. It's amazing how Mike Tyson can still have that kind of selling power and that kind of brand recognition 30 some years later in the sport. And that's why they're doing. Think about it. I'll give you another stat. Remember when Mike Tyson had that exhibition against Roy Jones Jr.? Remember that? And that was one of the first times where I think the boxing world figured out, man, we don't even have to have actual boxers in their prime. People will pay good money just to watch old boxers way past their prime for the nostalgia factor. And so because actually they do miss boxing. As one of sports, MMA has kind of taken that place. Like MMA has taken the place of the bloodthirst that we all have for that kind of contact sport, you know what I mean? Or that kind of hand-to-hand combat sport. But the Chicago Sun-Times, they reported, after that fight, that they sold more than 1.6 million pay-per-view buys. They made $80 million in pay-per-view revenue off of that Roy Jones, Mike Tyson exhibition fight. It was ranked top, guys. It ended up finishing top 12 all time in pay-per-view buys at the time. Think about that. And they were like, okay, you know what? To hell with trying to get these fighters on the same page. And sometimes they don't want to fight each other, and they want to fight other fights first. And I ain't even got to worry about getting them in their prime to make the money. I ain't got to get these two fighters on the same page and on the same schedule to have a build up to a crescendo of a match. I don't need to do that. I just got to go find the old fighters that people remember and the most recognizable names, and I can sell the fight that way. Brand recognition. That's what Mike Tyson is. He's brand. That's why Money Mayweather can still do it. Money Mayweather's doing these exhibitions now too. Yeah. I was fighting an exhibition. And you're like, why would he fight an exhibition? Because the Floyd that Floyd Mayweather McGregor exhibition, it's the second highest or second most pay-per-view buys of all time.
No, it should tell you
it was an exhibition.
It should tell you what a good job HBO and Showtime did building up those stories and those people at that time.
Oh yeah,
because no one's done it since, because boxing's so fractured and there's no like great entity to promote boxing anymore that good point. Can't build boxers. That's why MMA is bigger. You have UFC to build fighters, and you have a machine to push the common narrative. And in boxing, everyone's trying to promote their guys, so there's no real big push anymore. Where HBO and Showtime made these great boxers, and they're still relevant today, where no one's making new ones. So the companies are like, well, we could either spend $500 million to try and build new stars, or we could pay each these guys like $20 million, and they'll fight each other, and their name's already there.
Yep. No, you're right, because they should do those because they would do essentially the mini little documentaries or mini series. I forget what it was called, right? That would lead up to the fight. It was like, I think it was like a week to week thing. Yeah. It was like a 6 weeks long, and they would watch them train, and they'd go behind the scenes. And you're right, those were compelling. Feel huge. Yeah, they were huge. Those were great. I remember those. I can't remember the name. I'm sure somebody will hit us up on the text line with it, but those were great. But you're right. They would build the narrative.
Yeah.
They would create the narrative and create the storyline for you. And by the time you watch a couple of those shows, you were hooked. You're like, I'm watching this damn fight. I remember because his baby mama. She's dealing with a health issue. And you're like, all this stuff about the fighting that you didn't know before. You're like, he sends a lot of money home to Puerto Rico, man. It's a big fight for him, and all those little details. But you're right. And now there's still a thirst and appetite for it. Obviously, because everybody's going to watch the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight. But you're right. The infrastructure and the boxing establishment as it is, they just haven't been able to do it in a cohesive manner anymore like they did back when, I don't know, it seems like Showtime and HBO were on board. Just a different era of boxing. But yeah, the new era of boxing, it's going to be on Netflix. Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, and we'll actually hear some sound of Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's still scary. He is still scary.
Yeah.
He is still scary. At 50, what is he, 50? You say
58.
58 years old. He still has these moments, even though now he's become like a pop culture icon, a pop culture figure. People, they treat him like he's like he's an icon in a lot of ways, but we treat him like he was always a lovable icon. Like people ask their kids to go take pictures of Mike Tyson and stuff, and people forget there was a time when Mike Tyson was legitimately just an accepted sociopath, just walking amongst us. And now he's being rehabilitated. But I've said it before, I think it's the greatest redemption story in American sports history. Give me another one where somebody's bounced back and become that beloved from where he was at one point, went to jail for sexual assault, literally used to say, I won't interview with female reporters unless I can fornicate with them, bit a man's ear off in the ring. Go listen to some of the sound and audio of Mike Tyson back in his prime, and he admits, like, I was just a psychopath. No question about it. And he has, like I said, since being rehabilitated, but the acceptance of American sports fans of Mike Tyson shows you that we love the redemption story. We love it. Otherwise, we'd have canceled Mike Tyson years ago, too. Nobody canceled Mike Tyson. Matter of fact, Mike Tyson has grown more popular through the cancel culture. Nobody said, hey, remember what Mike Tyson did? Why do we like him? Nope. First of all, you're scared to do it. But he's been unapologetically authentic and honest throughout the entire transformation. Yes. He was legitimately that. He didn't hide the fact that he had sociopathy. He didn't hide that. And he also did not hide his struggles. He had that one-man show, remember, where he was doing like a one-man show in Vegas. And then now he's still out there in the open. And he's still very forthcoming about his struggles and then about what he's going through now. It's really an amazing story. It's an amazing story. We'll see. I hope this is not the end of the story. But if Mike Tyson's knocked out by Jake Paul, oh, man, the devastation to my generation. Yeah. The devastation. It's going to devastate the psyche of my generation. I don't know what
the betting odds are, but it has to be heavily in favor of Jake Paul, right?
Yes, Jake Paul is. Yes, it's, I forgot, I heard it yesterday, but yes, Jake Paul is favored. Yeah, come on.
Mike Tyson's 58.
He's 31 years older. I don't know. We all like that grown man strength, that old man strength. But if you got into it with a 27-year-old in his prime and you were 58 years old, unless you are just in amazing shape, which Mike is.
No, it is. It's all about
you're at a severe disadvantage.
Can you just catch him? Can you catch him? Can you just catch him? Oh, it's all of us want. Just can you catch him?
Yeah, you're right. You don't have to, I guess, knock him out, even win the fight. But man, can you just catch him one good time in the face and just have him staggered like that? Remember, listen, we talk about George Foreman did that. Yeah. Remember George Foreman he was what? I don't know how much older he was than, was it Michael Moore back in the day? I remember he was the oldest heavyweight champion in history at the time. I think he still might have been oldest heavyweight champion to win the title at the time. Period. Still to this day. But I think he might have been 20. He might have been close to 20 years older than Michael Moore or something like that. He did. But my point is, he caught him though. It wasn't luck, but because Foreman has always had a ridiculously hellacious punch, but he caught him. He literally he caught Moore slipping, and it was over. He knocked him out. He was even surprised when he did. I still remember George Foreman like, I knocked him out. Okay.
Well, is he good? No, he's down. He's down.
He's down. I guess I got him. And it's like, old man wins. And that's kind of the feeling now. Everybody wants to see if the old man can pull one out. So I guess I'm rooting for the old man. It's crazy how quickly that happens. All right. We'll talk more about that, of course. because that's a big event happening this weekend. But let's talk about some other events happening this weekend. Texas, Arkansas, which will be coming up Saturday, and we have the latest availability report. We'll get into that momentarily. But first, let's get the Horn headlines. Let's get educated, updated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and those Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, Victor Wembanyama got his first 50-point game last night as the Spurs beat the Wizards 139-130. Chris Paul added 11 rebounds in the game, where Wembanyama became the fourth youngest player in NBA history to score 50 points in a game. The Rockets beat the Clippers 111-103, with Tari Eason and Amen Thompson continuing to provide big minutes off the bench, both scoring 18 points and having double-digit rebounds. Tonight, the Mavericks take on the Jazz. In college basketball, the Longhorn women took out Lamar 95-58 in another dominant performance led by Shea Holley and Justice Carlton with 15 points each. They are back in action on Sunday against DePaul. And in the NFL, the Commanders face the Eagles on Thursday Night Football in a matchup for the lead in the NFC East. The Eagles have won 5 out of their last 6 matchups, but the Commanders look to turn that around after having their best start to a season since 1996. And that's your Horn headlines.
All right. Thank you for the Horn headlines. Yes. George Foreman was 19 years, I believe, older. He was 19. He was 45, and Michael Moore was 26 at the time.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's crazy. And it's crazy. It's weird hearing all these names because Michael Moore defeated Vander Holyfield. I think that was by decision. And remember, Holyfield beat Riddick Bowe to get the title. And the last fight that George Foreman had since that, or at least before that, winning that title against Michael Moore was against Tommy Morrison. Remember that name?
Yeah,
that's how big boxing used to be. They had their own list, like C-list celebrities, and Tommy Morrison was one of them. Remember that dude? Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, and ended up in the Rocky movie as Tommy. Was he Tommy Gunn in the Rocky movie?
Oh,
he was mentored by Rocky in the movie. Anyway, going down a boxing rabbit hole there. All right. Anyway, let's talk. Can we talk about Wemby real quick? I know you watched that game because you're a Spurs fan.
I watched some of it. I did not watch all.
Yes,
of it, yeah.
He scored 50?
50.
50?
50.
Dude, he's doing some crazy stuff this season. We're really not keeping up with.
He had that bad game, and after that, got pissed off and now is playing a lot better. Devin Vassell's back in the lineup. They still don't have Jeremy Sohan. He's out. But they're playing.
Chris Paul was a great move.
It's helping him out. He's starting to get there. Their turnovers are going down. They're starting to figure it out a little bit more. It's interesting because Vassell came back. They still got Stefan Castle, that rookie they drafted, in the starting lineup because they're trying to add some more defense because the guards are just going off. Jordan Poole had 40-something points last night. So they're trying to get that defense short up with the guards a little bit because guards are just scoring like crazy on them right now.
But they just shoot. They're not going to the rim a lot.
They are doing somewhat because if you can pull Wemby out, then you can because they don't have the secondary big man because Jeremy Sohan's out. So normally you'd have 2 guys that can kind of go in there. So there's ways that people are going about it and getting it done. But yeah, they just need to shore up that defense a little bit more. The news came out yesterday too that the Spurs finally announced why Pop has been out. That he suffered a mild stroke after the game on the 2nd of November. And so he's been recovering at home. They're hoping that they expect a full recovery and everything. But that is why he's been on a leave of absence for the last few weeks. Man, so they finally announced that yesterday, which was kind of the scuttlebutt behind the scenes. But it was
something health or it was something.
Well, it was health. Everybody knew his health, but that was kind of one of those things that, it was known but not said. Basically,
the
he has enough
community
respect.
And the family knew, but they
the Spurs have enough respect in that. Yeah, you basically know everybody who was involved because I kind of got word about it, but not fully that, but word about it, and it's like he'll be okay, but yeah, it wasn't great.
I know it's even having a discussion now, I think is a bit insensitive, obviously disrespectful. Do they think this is going to kind of expedite the retirement?
I mean, probably somewhat, but I mean, I think that would be more of him deciding to walk away from it.
No. I'm not. Obviously, nobody's gonna push him. I'm talking about for him, because whenever he decides to walk away.
I mean, you would assume, but also, I don't think the plan was for him to be there that much longer anyway. I think it's just kind of always drug out because there hasn't been that next person.
They don't know who they don't know who the next coach is. They think they have an idea, but they don't know.
Well, and I think too, he doesn't want to put someone in the situation of giving them a bad team.
Dude, you're giving them Wemby. They're fine.
They are, but I mean, this is
still. Hey, Pop, they're good. They're good, Pop.
I think he wants to give them a team to be like, I don't want you to get fired in 2 years because you're not winning playoff games.
No, trust me. I get it. That's gonna happen anyway. But you know what I mean. But Pop, I get that. That sounds like Pop too, because how devoted he is to the organization, to the franchise. We're like, hey man, they good. Take care of you. They got Wemby. Yeah. If they can't figure it out with Wemby, they're not a good coach. They need to be fired anyway. Like, come on, give them 2-3 years of Wemby. You can't make the playoffs, then we're moving on. All right, let's talk about the availability report for the Longhorns and the Arkansas Razorbacks that came out yesterday. The usual players who have been out most of the season, of course, C.J. Baxter, Christian Clark, Velton Gardner, all at running back, they are out. Derek Williams Jr., of course, he has been out for the second half of the season. Here are the surprises for the Longhorns. Maurice Blackwell finds himself doubtful for the game in terms of his status versus Arkansas. And then Colton Vasek from, remember, last week, found himself unavailable for the Longhorns versus Florida. And I'm assuming is probably going to be doubtful for this game. I don't expect him to be upgraded. Not sure about Mo Blackwell, but the blessing in disguise is you've had some linebackers step up for you in the last month. You've had Leon Lafau step up and play really good football for you at linebacker. Ty Anthony Smith, who always confuses me because he wears that number 20-something, like 20, was he like 26 or 25? It always confuses me because I always think it's another DB on the field. I was like, are they in dime personnel? Oh, no, that's a linebacker because he runs so well, too. Like he's actually so, he's so fluid in the way he runs. He doesn't run like a linebacker. So he looks like a DB out there. But so Ty Anthony Smith stepping up, I think also helps you. So no need to panic about Mo Blackwell potentially being unavailable. I'm not that concerned about the depth at linebacker because Leon Lafau has played well. Ty Anthony Smith has played well. And then, of course, you got Benda and you got Anthony Hill. So you still got depth at linebacker. So that's, it's ain't depth at edge. Of course, you loaded at edge with Trey Moore and of course, young Colin Simmons with Barron Sorrell out there and Ethan Burke. So you got plenty of options on the edge too with Colton Vasek. But I like both of those. First of all, Colton Vasek has flashed this season and looked really good when he's flashed so far. So disappointed to see him back on the injury report because that was kind of something that plagued him early on in his career, that he was injured and couldn't stay healthy, and thought this was the year that, at least for most of the season, he had stayed healthy and made an impact as well. So that's the Longhorn side of the availability report. The players who are out for Arkansas: Selman Bridges, Anton Junkaj, the defensive lineman. Selman Bridges is DB. They got 3 DBs that are out. Jalen Braxton, Anthony Switzer, also DBs that are out. The D lineman, as I said, Anton Junkaj. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. That's no disrespect intended. He's out. Kyle Ramsey, their kicker, is out. Anytime a specialist is out, that's a bad omen for a team because you don't keep a lot of specialists on your route. You don't have depth at long snapper,
which we know about punters.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you're back. There's a precipitous drop off probably from your first team kicker and punter into the backup they have. So we'll get into that action. We go behind the burnt orange curtain. Their backup kicker has played. Neither one of their kickers has been consistent. They've been inconsistent in the kicking game all season long. So he wasn't great when he was playing. And there's some Arkansas fans, they believe they got an upgrade with the backup kicker, but he's not necessarily consistent either. So that's something to keep in mind. The kicking game becomes a huge factor. The Arkansas Razorbacks are a bit deficient there. Braylon Russell, the running back, is questionable. That's relatively new. He was available versus Ole Miss, and they were coming off a bye week. Braylon Russell is a load. If he doesn't play, that significantly hinders their offense. I think he's like 6'2", 250. Dude's averaging like 6.7 yards per rush, like something freaky. I mean, he's, and like I said, you just don't. Texas hadn't played a running back like that. They hadn't had to play a running back with that kind of size, with that kind of frame, and so, in my opinion, for the Longhorns, he could be a problem in the running game. And if he's not there, like I said, they lose that physicality. They lose that punch. That downhill power running game with him. So that's something to look at. Also, looks like Jaquindon Jackson, he has been unavailable for the last couple of weeks. But I think Jaquindon Jackson will play. I mean, this guy at one point went to Texas, then as a quarterback transferred to Utah, and then changed positions and transferred again to Arkansas, and actually has started out the season as one of the better running backs in the country before his injuries. He also runs with a physical presence, a physical downhill presence. So we'll talk about that run game of Arkansas a little bit. Taylon Green also is on here. Taylon Green, along with Jaquindon Jackson, listed as probable. Braylon Russell listed as questionable. Probable. So I expect Taylon Green to play. When Sam Pittman was asked about his status after having the knee sprain, I believe it was, versus Ole Miss, Sam Pittman said he practiced all week during the bye week, looked great, and they expect him to go. So I expect him to be upgraded or at least removed from this report altogether by tomorrow. And Jaquindon Jackson, like I said, he's probable, so likely going to play. But even if he was questionable, I think he'd find a way to get out there versus Texas. That's personal to him. So the only one really to watch here is Braylon Russell, the running back. If that is significant for them, the guys in the secondary, the kicker is significant as well, as we talked about, and missing Selman Bridges in the secondary and a couple of other rotational guys in the secondary will hurt them. But their secondary has been hurting a whole season long, especially after that Ole Miss game where they gave up over 500 yards passing in that matchup. So that is the latest availability report. We'll come back and we'll get into this matchup a little bit and talk about the run game, talk about the offense of Arkansas. One of the most explosive offense in the country. What are their staples? What plays, what concepts do they lean on? And how do those concepts translate to this matchup between Texas and Arkansas? We'll dive into that a little bit on the other side and talk about this weekend's matchup between the Longhorns and the Razorbacks right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. Talk about the upcoming opponent for the Longhorns, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, I've been telling you guys this Arkansas offense is explosive. I went over the numbers yesterday. Just know in terms of 10 plus yard plays and 20 plus yard plays, you're talking about a top 5 team in generating explosive chunk yardage plays. Good for the Texas defense that they have been the best in the country at eliminating and at limiting explosive plays, 10 plus, 20 plus yard plays on the season. So that's not necessarily anything I'm concerned about with Texas, but they haven't faced an offense this explosive. Haven't faced a quarterback, a dual threat quarterback that is this dynamic in Taylor Green. And they haven't faced, I think, a group of running backs that can be this physical as well, especially if Braylon Russell and Jaquindon Jackson are available. But let's talk about some of the concepts that Arkansas really likes that I think could translate to what they want to do versus Texas. The run game, that's what leads the way. That's their identity on offense. They want to run the rock, and they're really good at it too. And they also present a +1 in the run game with the quarterback as a dual threat as well. And they like to get him on the edge at times. They want to get him on the edge. As a matter of fact, that's where they do most of their damage. Think D gap. D gaps, or think outside the tight end, right, is your D gap. If you go look at the most 10 plus yard runs, they've come on the D gap, right, and the left D gap for them. They've got 17 10 plus yard rushes on the right D gaps, 12 10 plus yard rushes on the left D gap. Those are the only gaps where they have double digit explosive runs. All right, so that's what they want to get to. They also have their longest runs of the season. Their most explosive runs period of the season have been through the D gap, a 46-yard run on the right side and a 70-yard run, I believe it is, on the left side. The most rushing first downs are through the D gap on the right and the left side. They have 32 first downs rushing through the D gap on the right side, 18 first downs rushing through the D gap on the left side. They have 32 rushing first downs through the D gap on the right side. They have 18 rushing first downs, D gap on the side. So you get my point. Like it's that's where they want to do the damage, and it's with the outside zone. They're off tackle plays, and they'll run sweep, which essentially amounts to kind of a toss sweep, but they'll run a sweep out there. I think the quarterback design run game is how they really hit you on the edges. So for the edges for Texas, we talk about Ethan Burke, we talk about Barron Sorrell, Colin Simmons, Trey Moore. Trey Moore's coming off his best game. Going to be a test for them because that's where they really want to pound the rock. They use the inside zone, whether it be the slam or the split inside zone, which Texas does a lot of time with the split flow in the backfield. And Florida ran for almost 200 yards, and Florida used some of these concepts. They use the inside zone, and they average over 5 yards per rush running the inside zone. They ran the outside zone, and they averaged over 5 yards per rush on those concepts too. They ran power against Texas, inside power, and had some success. If you look at the success rate that Florida had running inside power. So some of the same concepts that Florida had success on, and obviously we know Texas was willing to concede a lot of those yards once they got a big lead. You'll see Arkansas, that's some of Arkansas's staples in their run game as well. And so the inside zone, the outside zone off tackle for them. And they run just like I said, they'll run like a lead play where they pull the backside guard, just power football, and kind of call it a G down lead. They'll run that, and that to me, I think is also something that Texas could have problems with, just displacing the numbers at the point of attack. And like I said, Florida, when they ran inside power, they had some success running it. And I think Arkansas may have better running backs, especially if Jaquindon Jackson plays and Braylon Russell play. So that would be the concern there. But Texas hasn't shown that they're vulnerable one way or another to one particular concept or any type of gap integrity issues in the front seven. So I'm not saying that these are the exact runs that they're going to use, but this is their bread and butter. And like I said, those are some of the concepts that Florida had some success on. So just looking at the recent game Texas played, they may try to run, I think a lot of inside zone, and I think you might try to give them the run a lot of power. They might stay away from the Texas edges, but my point is that's where they do all the damage. And so we'll see if they still want to attack the Texas edges, because that's where the strength, arguably, of the defensive line has been. But hell, Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton and Lole, Bill Norton, those guys have been steady, consistent so far this year. So this will be a real big test for the defensive line, because you also got to take into account containing the quarterback run game. So you can't be uberly aggressive in really crashing down on those interior runs, because anytime you try to crash down interior runs, got to worry about Taylor Green. So they could combine some zone read with their inside zone game, force those edges to stay at home while they're trying to run downhill on you, and then that could potentially be compromising for Texas, because they haven't faced a dual threat quarterback like that with that ability. Diego Pavia, he's more of a crafty. I think yes, he can be a dual threat quarterback, but he's not the same type as a Taylor Green. I think he's more about, he extends the play, but he's not a dynamic athlete playing quarterback. He's a savvy, crafty athlete playing quarterback. I think he's a hell of a playmaker. But Taylor Green's got some measurables you just cannot teach. In terms, like I said, guy almost looks like a basketball player out there playing quarterback for them, and throws the football really well. Speaking of throwing the football, here's some passing concepts from Arkansas that work really well for them, that they like, that I think you'll see versus Texas. They love the play action bootleg, which makes sense, right? Put that athlete, Taylor Green, out on the edge, give him the option to run or to throw. With that play action bootleg, the linebackers have to respect the play action fake because of the prowess of the running game for Arkansas. That's going to suck them in. Then you got the quarterback bootlegging out. That's going to test the edges for Texas, and probably going to bring a spy with him. And that's going to do what? It's going to leave a void right in the middle of the defense. Suck the linebackers in. Spy has to probably float with him, and they're probably going to bring in drag routes right behind him to give him an option. Easy option to throw to an open guy, or can you beat the linebacker to the edge and get us 8-9 yards? Yep, he can do that. He's averaging they're averaging like 11 yards per scramble, something close to that, which makes sense. Even with Malachi Singleton in there, they can be deadly scrambling. So that's why they love the play action bootleg. I think oftentimes they'll just turn it into a scramble drill, and they'll turn it into almost a design run play for him. They also love the all verts, which I think is dangerous against Texas because of Andrew Armstrong. They run out verts, and you got this 6'4" monster out there who who has 36 10+ yard receptions, at least the SEC. Also top 10 nationally. He's got 14 20+ yard receptions, tied for 9th, but also leads the SEC. There's some people that believe he might be the best wide receiver, definitely in the conversation to be one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. Best wide receiver Texas has faced. You run 4 verts. By the way, they got size at wide receiver. You look at the wide receivers that are in the rotation for them. Tesla, 6'4". Broden, 6'7". Andrew Armstrong, 6'4". All verts works for them, right? They got guys that can box you out on the outside. And not only that, they have a quarterback that when, say you're in man-to-man, you got your backs turned, or you got your safeties over the top, sinking to be over the top and be, the blanket coverage, if you will, over those 4 verts, and the linebackers dropping back. Scramble drill is really tough. That's a lot of open field between your linebacker and your spy trying to track down Taylor Green if he decides to scramble in the open field with a lot of green grass. So I think that's why they like the all verts too. Not only does it, I think weaponize a guy like Andrew Armstrong. If he ends up isolated outside, chunk it to him. 50-50 ball with a guy like that turns into an 80-20 ball. Or if they're respecting the all verts and you give them enough time, you should have some space to scramble if you need to as a quarterback. And I think that's why the all verts is pretty dangerous with them. They'll have to have a plan for Andrew Armstrong. And this thing about Arkansas doesn't have a lot of players, in my opinion, that Texas needs to worry about at all times. Andrew Armstrong is one of those guys. You need to know where he is at all times. That the passing game, it runs through Andrew Armstrong. A lot of it does, especially the big plays. If Texas, who has the best pass defense in the country right now, best cornerback duo in the country right now, I think Texas has the best chance of anybody to neutralize him. Now, we'll say this: they don't move him around. The most snaps he's got in the slot, he's usually on the outside. Most snaps he's got in the slot is 7 in a game. My prediction is Bobby Petrino puts him in the slot close to double digits in this game versus Texas. It just only makes sense. Why the hell would you leave him out there with Jahdae Barron, who's going to be a Thorpe Award finalist? Why would you leave him out there with Malik Muhammad, who's one of the best cover corners in the country as well? Best cornerback duo. Seems to work. If you want to work smarter, not harder, you move them inside, get them matched up against a Gilbo or a safety. Not that those guys are scrubs or anything, but it's a better matchup for you than being outside with the best cornerback duo in the country. Now, if they do that, if I'm Texas, I just shift Jahdae Barron right on inside. This my contingency plan would be I will move Jahdae Barron inside. He plays nickel for us anyway in slot when we go to our nasty dime package. Or hell, sometimes when they put Gavin Holmes and Malik Muhammad out there, just shift Jahdae Barron inside. That's probably what I do in that game too. I just probably shift him right inside and say, Jahdae, you got it. If they're gonna put Andrew Armstrong in the slot a lot, matter of fact, I'd probably have it where it's malleable enough, the DBs out there, where you could go from outside to inside if you needed to. And you could trust Gilbo on the outside if you want to, but they don't play him out there. They do cross-train all these guys. What's the point of cross-training everybody if you never use that versatility? So if they move Andrew Armstrong around, perfect time to use that versatility. So that is, and they like the stick variation. A stick is just the slot or the tight end runs basically a curl route. He can cut it inside or he can break it outside based on the leverage of the defender. They like that. It's a quick hitter. And usually they'll run like a flat route in combination with that. Give the quarterback just an easy read. If the defender's inside, receivers breaking outside. Defenders outside, receivers breaking inside. So they like that concept too. But I think the ones that are most dangerous that Texas needs to prepare for, play action bootleg and the all verts. They run slants. Texas has been really good at defending these quick hitter throws in the quick game. Last year, they were very susceptible to the quick game because they didn't play with situational awareness. Now the guys are situationally aware. They know the down. They know the distance. You can tell they're doing film study on tendencies and habits and patterns of these offenses. And there are a lot of times I think they're jumping routes. And if they are playing off, their leverage is usually, I think an advantage for them because they usually have the right leverage and they don't bail out of there. You can tell guys are not backpedaling at the start of the snap. They're reading eyes and a lot of times sitting on some of these routes because I think they're so confident in their film and prep for the game that they know, this route on second and medium with this formation, I'm probably going to see this route combination. And they've been right most of the time this season. A drive is something else they do. Drive is shallow. It's a shallow crosser with a 6 route behind it, like a deep in cut behind it. And that's usually also these are very simple reads for the quarterback. If the linebacker drops back to defend that deep in cut, well, you could throw it to the shallow crosser. If he decides to take away the shallow crosser, well, throw it to the deep in cut behind it. So very simple reads for Taylor Green. And it's probably, if that's not open, run. That's probably the way the progression works for him. It's like, okay, if you see that linebacker and he drops, but you don't like the way the safety drifts over, just tuck the ball and go. So we're not giving him a lot to process, but he does a good job. I went back and looked at the Pro Football Focus numbers, guys. 10-plus yard throws. He's 15th in the country in passing grade on 10-plus yard throws. 92 on passing grade period. He's got an 84. He's 12th in passing grade in the country. He is not your typical dual threat quarterbacks. I think he's a lot more efficient when he does have to work from the pocket, but that's not ideally what they want to do. They want to get him on the move. They want to unleash him, if you will, on a defense. All right, let's get to the break. We come back. We'll get into the topic of the Big Fat Poll of the day and the musically themed day of the week right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime on the Horn. Rod Baby's coming back on the Horn.
Back in the Rodcast here on a Thursday morning, and that means it's a new theme Thursday. And today's new theme, I'm not sure it's a great idea because some of you guys seem a little grumpy on the text line this morning. I'm trying to bring you up, but today's theme, because of Arkansas, and we know that Arkansas hates Texas more than they like Arkansas. Today's theme is about hate, and every song has the word hate in the title today. Little tribute to Arkansas and their hatred for us. That we will throw in there a little hate today on the musical theme, starting you off with a little thin line between love and hate to kick you off. But all the songs today will have hate in the title. We'll get it rolling right along into the big fat poll today. Text line's open. 512-447-3776 is the text line number, and we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big Fat Poll of the Day today. We talked a little bit about it right there on the behind the burnt orange curtain. But this is kind of a big piece for this Arkansas team. And Texas has been good at stopping it until last week. So we'll ask you, how many rushing yards will Texas allow to Arkansas? We know Texas did allow a season high 197 to Florida last week. A lot of that was late in the game when it wasn't as crucial, but they did. It was a season high 197 yards to Florida last week. If you look at Arkansas, they had 127 last week at Ole Miss. Then a couple weeks ago at Mississippi State, 359 yards rushing. It's a pretty good number, 359.
Mississippi State is terrible.
They are not stopping the run whatsoever. And LSU, though, held them to 38 yards. Tennessee, they had 134. A&M, they had 100 and 183 at Auburn are their SEC opponents. So they've done pretty well at some points, but then you've seen a couple of the games that are losses. They got slowed down a lot, especially that LSU game. They just got nothing going on the ground against LSU. So here's what we'll look at. I'll give you the options of 0 to 90, 90 to 120, 120 to 150, and 150 plus.
Yeah. Definitely not getting 150 plus. I'm going to say 90 to 120, somewhere in there. But honestly, it could easily be more than that, too. I don't know how the game's going to play out. They can get a lot of rushing yards like Florida did, and it'd be inconsequential. They'd be irrelevant yards. So if the offense pulls away early like they did against Florida, I do think that could also affect the rushing yards because it'll force Arkansas to have to pass a little bit more just to stay in the game with Texas. So it's a complementary football part of this too. So I think with the offense playing well, scoring, I'll say 90 to 120. That's probably what I'm hoping. But the truth is, I think they'll probably get more than that, maybe.
Yeah, and this is the difference too, is Florida didn't really have a quarterback that they felt could throw the ball. And so at the end of the game, they ran it because they didn't have a passing game. Whereas Arkansas can still throw the football. Taylor Green can play quarterback. So if Texas gets a big lead, they're not stuck in the only way we can move the ball is running it. They can still throw late. So it may not be as much of Florida where there was no, like, if we just throw it deep, we're just going to throw a bunch of picks.
Yep.
Like I think Taylor Green's a much better quarterback. So you're able to kind of go a different way in that fourth quarter where they can still throw the ball in the fourth quarter and try and move the chains and throw it on the outside. They can do those things that Florida just couldn't. And that's why that total was so high, is most teams still throw the ball in the fourth quarter when you're down trying to come back. And Florida just said, screw it. We don't have a passing game. We have to run the ball. That will not be the case for Arkansas because Taylor Green can throw it. So I don't know if that would be the case. So I think that's where 150, instead of thinking that they would go 150 will be the number I'll go with as the highest. Texas should not allow more than 150 to this Arkansas rushing attack. Even if they use it early and often, Texas should be able to stop it. But that'll be your question for today. How many rushing yards will Texas allow to Arkansas? 0 to 90, 90 to 120, 120 to 150, or 150 plus?
Yeah, I mean, if Texas pulls away early offensively, I think, like I said, that will determine how often they're running the football. If Texas doesn't pull away early, if Texas doesn't get on top of them by 2 scores by the second quarter, that's exactly what Arkansas wants. Then they can run the football, shorten the game, limit possessions for Texas. And that ultimately is how you stay competitive with Texas. That's how Mississippi State stayed competitive with Texas, even though it shouldn't have been competitive. Now you need Texas to, have some self-inflicted wounds as well. So they're playing as efficient as they were versus Florida, where they had very few mistakes as an offense. then Arkansas stands no chance at all. Arkansas's going to need his defense to make some plays. If that Arkansas defense looks like it did versus Ole Miss, then honestly, that it doesn't really matter. What their offense, to me, it doesn't matter as much as what they do, because Texas will be able to score at will. They won't be able to stop Texas at all. And Texas defense will get stops versus Arkansas. We just know they're the best defense in the country. They're going to get stops. Arkansas, I think, is going to make some plays too and move the football. So you may go back and forth in that matchup. But if Arkansas's defense looks anything like it did versus Ole Miss, then this game will be over with by halftime. Because they won't be able to keep up.
Yeah.
If their defense doesn't get some stop. They got no stops versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss just got 500-something yards passing. That's crazy. Like that, it's unbelievable. I mean, Jackson Dart. Like I said, I haven't looked at Jackson Dart's entire history in terms of his game by game performance. I'm going to assume that that's the best game he's ever played.
And he missed a series in there early in the game. Austin Simmons came in. Jackson Dart hobbled off, went to the locker room early in the game. So I was watching with some friends, and we were laughing that Austin Simmons walked down, went 3 for 3 for 47 yards and a touchdown, and just walked down the field on him. And then we were like, Jackson Dart's coming back. I'm like, no. My job. It's my job.
Well, I don't think it was the quarterback didn't seem to matter. It's basically
it did, but Jackson Dart didn't get a touchdown on his first drive. I think he punted or it threw an interception or something on that first drive. And so he got hurt, and they brought in Simmons, and then Jackson Dart came back in and made sure everybody knew it was his job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Texas, honestly, they look bad. That was the worst Texas looked too. So it was on the first drive. Remember, that's when they got the sack.
Yeah.
Tackles for loss.
Well, it was funny, and that drive
they missed the field goal.
That drive wasn't terrible. The end of that drive was awful, but they moved it right down the field.
I know, but I think Sark would say that's a bad drive then, because you getting that close to and not getting any points out of it, bad drive.
Yeah.
Bad drive.
No, 100%. It was a bad drive overall. But yeah, the doom and gloom that I heard after was like, no, they're bad when they get off schedule, and they got off schedule real quick, and it went poorly. But they were fine going up to it. I think they'll be fine going forward, and then they were. You just got to keep on schedule early. If Texas stays on schedule early, they'll score.
Yeah. So Jackson Dart in that game with Jackson Dart, he had on throws of 25 yards or more, he was 5 of 6 for 282 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 158 passer rating on deep balls versus that Arkansas defense. And that one receiver, what's his name? Jordan Watkins. He had 5 touchdowns receiving and a 250 yards receiving. Both of them were school records. Like I said, I don't know how they grow wings over one bye week on that defense, and all of a sudden be able to stop Texas. We shall see. I'm sure they'll have something that Texas hadn't seen on film defensively. I don't know if it'll be enough. There is one guy they got to worry about though. Landon Jackson is a dude. They need to worry about him. He's a problem. In terms of pass rush, he can wreck your game plan. If they got a plan for him, I don't know how many game wreckers that Arkansas has on that defense. So, but anyway, getting back to it, I think Texas defense allows between 90 and 120 rushing yards, somewhere around there. All right, that's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Go check it out. We'll have that posted for you at the Horn ATX on X. But first, let's come back from the break. We'll discuss, obviously, some Longhorn football on the other side. But I want to dive into the NFL a little bit. You got a big game tonight in the NFC East, a showdown between the NFC East leaders, the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll break that down. I'll also talk about some of the other big games coming up this weekend between the Bills and the Chiefs. You got that big game. You got the Steelers and the Ravens. A lot of big matchups. And how about the news that the Colts have decided to go back to Anthony Richardson? What? Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. We'll get into that on the other side, too. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, comes with a brand new theme for a fresh, new creative theme for Thursday. And since we are approaching Texas versus Arkansas, rekindling the conference rivalry between the two heated and hated rivals, that is indeed the theme of New Theme Thursday. It's all about hatred because Arkansas, they hate Texas more than they love themselves. Even the coach admitted that was the case. So now Patrick is paying tribute to that theme, and now all the songs will have hate or hatred in them, or refer to hatred in them, as a tribute to the Texas rivalry. I think it's it's one of those. It's an old school rivalry, no doubt, because I wasn't really introduced to it as a rivalry. Even when Mac was recruiting us, he talked about Oklahoma, talked about Texas A&M. While you were being recruited, you didn't hear about Arkansas because you weren't in the same conference with them. And, I experienced playing them. I played them in 99 and got beat by Arkansas because, they played with a lot more emotional charge than we did. And I think for Arkansas, the rivalry never dies. And I think for Texas, it has died and now been, they resurrected again, but still it's stronger with them. It is. That's just the reality of it. It's stronger with Arkansas fans. It always has been, guys. It always has been. Maybe not in the 60s, but in the modern era, it is because we didn't play them in the conference and we don't have the history. So there's a generations of Longhorn fans who don't know anything about it. And in players, that includes too. And I was included in that generation. I didn't know anything about it. I got beat by him and then found out about it. And it was like, same thing with Sark in 2021. Yeah. They got beat and found out about, this is a very hated and heated rivalry here. Yeah, it is. Because for Texas, they come in like, we just got to play these Razorbacks, man. That's old school rivalry. No, it's fresh with them. It's fresh. It's fresh. For Texas, it's the nostalgia. It's like, back in the day, Nixon in 1969. No. With Arkansas fans, that you are their rival. They don't have another. They don't have a rival.
Yeah.
It's you. It's always been you. I feel like it's a romance. I feel like it's a rom-com. It's always been you, Texas. It's always been you, man. It ain't nobody else. It ain't LSU. It ain't A&M. No, it's you. It ain't Arkansas Pine Bluff. No, it's you, Texas. Always has been. Even when y'all weren't playing, what's that meme of Wolverine laying in bed with he's got the picture frame and he's just leering at it. And that's Arkansas fans thinking about the Texas rivalry. It's always been you, man. And so that's why it's stronger. I always compare it to Star Wars and the Force, the power of the Force. It's stronger. Basically, from what my interpretation, it's just love and hate, right? That's the good side of the Force and the bad side of the Force. In those movies, the bad side of the Force is just as powerful, if not more powerful at times, than the good side of the Force. Ultimately, the good side of the Force will win out. But if you watch the Star Wars movies, the bad side of the Force is a mofo. And that essentially is what Arkansas is working with, the dark side of the Force. And they're like Darth Vader sometimes when they got the dark side of the Force working for them, because they use that hatred to fuel their competitive fire, and they play at an elevated level, riding the high of that emotion. And what Texas needs to do is they need to eliminate that quick, fast, in a hurry. Quick, fast, because they're going to come out with it. They're going to be, the fans are going to be right, even at 11 a.m., and that's also a blessing that it's 11 a.m. and not 7 p.m. or some night primetime game like I believe 2021 was a little bit later. That also helps, but you just need to slap them in the face with the reality of football real quick, so the emotion dissipates, and then we just get back to playing in between the chalk, and they go, they're just better. They're just way better. Yeah. None of the emotion and rivalry, none of that stuff even matters. They're just a much better football team than we are. That's what you got to, as soon as you can get to that and disperse with the theatrics and the emotion and all that kind of stuff with the rivalry, the better off Texas will be. But if you say you make a mistake early like you did in the Florida game.
Yes.
Right there at Arkansas. Say it's a sack and then a negative play. You miss it, go, that crowd? Oh, man, that crowd going to be rabid. It's going to feel like that place is like, it's going to feel like it is one of the most hostile and rowdy environments that probably those guys have ever been in. Most of them, it might be the most rowdy environment they've ever played in. I mean, Michigan, the big house, say what you want, but Michigan don't hate you. There's no history with you. Most of the Michigan fans, they weren't even excited. They knew they were going to get beat.
They were fat and happy.
They were fat.
They won a title last year. They're fat and happy.
Yes, this team is not. They just got humiliated 2 weeks ago by Ole Miss, and now their most hated rival comes in town. Oh man, they're gonna be crazy. So you don't want to allow them to have too much momentum and confidence early, because if you do, that emotion that we talk about, it will continue to fuel them. But if you come out fast, quick, get a 3 and out, come out, score in the first drive, man, that emotion, it evaporates.
No, the goal is at halftime to have everybody thinking about what their plans are after the game.
Pretty much.
It's the goal.
Exactly right.
It's the goal.
Yep.
Let everybody on their phone at halftime be like, so what else are we doing? Like, we got to go by the store. We got All right.
No, you're right, because if I'll tell you right now, Longhorn fans are going to travel. By the way, that is a tough place to travel to. Yeah. God bless all y'all Longhorn fans.
We did get a text from a guy, Oklahoma Greg, who lives in Oklahoma. He says he's going there, but he said tickets are a lot cheaper there than they are in Texas, and there's a lot available.
There you go.
So
boom. Yep, that tells you the enthusiasm Arkansas fans have right now. They're like, I don't know if I want to go to that game. It might be bad. And I don't want to be there with Longhorn fans.
No, and if you had to sit there, if you sat there a couple weeks ago and you watched that last game and you're like, man, I can't do another 60.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, because Sark, if anybody wants to put 60 on you, it's Sark. And by the way, who is one of Sark's good friends?
Oh, we know Lane.
Yeah. You don't think you don't think him and Lane had a little text exchange?
I don't know.
During the week?
Lane might be trying to sabotage already.
He could be. I
wouldn't be trusting Lane right now.
That's true. I wouldn't. Well, in terms of game planning, you probably can trust him.
But he needs us to lose.
He does, but it's not like it's not like on film you're gonna see things that that she's gonna give you some insight into that you haven't seen on the film. Like
exactly.
You're watching the film first, you go, hey man, I saw you did this, this, and this, and then Lane can just confirm it or say, oh no, that wasn't part of our game planning strategy. But you're right. I don't know if it would help him out during the season. My point is, they are like-minded offensively.
Yes.
And I do think that Sark can translate a lot of what he did in game plan wise with what Texas can do schematically versus Arkansas. So we shall see. But either way, like I said, Texas needs to remove remove emotion from the equation as quickly as possible. That's just going to be key, because if they don't, that's how Charlie Strong about borderline erotic. Hell, at 99, I experienced it. At 99, we lost Arkansas in the Cotton Bowl. Arkansas had us so rattled that they benched the starting corner. I was a freshman at the time. They benched the starting corner and threw me in the game because our starting corner gave up. It was, I remember this too. It was third. I want to say it was like third and like 15 or something. It was like third and really, really long. And our corner gave it up. And they came back to the sideline. Him and Coach Withers got into it. And then Coach Withers just benched him on the spot. I was like, Babers, get in there. And I'm like, what? I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, excuse me? And I want to say, yeah, it was like, and it was chaos on the sideline. My point is, and we ended up losing that game. Kind of found out what the rivalry was about then. I think ultimately it always is more important to Arkansas. It won't be in this matchup because Texas knows what it's all about. And I'm grateful that Sark went down there and got that Old Testament style butt whipping in 2021. Speaking of Arkansas, topic for the Big Fat Poll today. What is it, Patrick, for the folks out there?
Big Fat Poll today. How many rushing yards will Texas allow to Arkansas? We gave you 4 options: 0 to 90, 90 to 120, 120 to 150, and 150 plus. So far, no one touching the 150 plus, and 90 to 120 winning early on in those votes.
That's where I am, because I think the focus will be for Texas to take away the run game. I wouldn't doubt if he made some plays in the passing game that we're not expected, because they're so focused on taking away the run. And if I'm Arkansas, I might come out early throwing it.
Because I think too, Sark trusts that secondary so much right now.
Yes,
that exactly. you're gonna say it will adjust and we'll have the plan ready if this works. But I got some of the best corners in the game right now. Yep. Jahdae Barron and Manny Muhammad may be the best cornerback duo at least in the SEC, but maybe
I think they might be in the country. Actually,
might be in the country. So I'm going to trust them for a little bit. I'm going to trust my safeties to be where they need to be at, and we're going to really worry about the run. But I go play action early at some point and try and catch them.
I'm with you. Yep, I think that, because I think Texas is going to be a little overconfident in their corners. They should be. Well, overconfident is probably not the right word. They should be confident in their corners because they have been the best cornerback duo in the country. I want to say the passer rating allowed. I'll get just stats. I saw this earlier. Texas on 10-plus yard passes, they are allowing a passer rating of 24. I repeat, on the season. On 10-plus yard passes, Texas allows a passer rating of 24. Exactly. Like that. So I think they'll be like, you know what? Let's take away the identity of Arkansas. Let's load the box. Let's stack the box, take away the identity, force them to beat us, left-handed as a pocket passing team. And if I'm Arkansas, I beat them to the punch. It's almost what they call it in pitching. It's like reverse pitching, right? I would go in reverse if I was Arkansas. I'd come out throwing and then go back to the run after I surprise them throwing the football. I go back to the run and then kind of throw them off in terms of the sequencing of it. Because everybody expects Arkansas to line up, run the football early on and only throw when they need to. To win games, you got to break tendency. I might come out chunking it.
Yeah.
Come on, throw it a little bit against Texas. Not they'll have success, but my point is I don't know if you're going to have success just lining up and running right at Texas either. But this is, like I said, this is a very explosive offense for Arkansas. All right, let's get to the Horn headlines. Then we'll come back. And we got to discuss, Jerry Jones has stated, we played the audio for yesterday, that the glare of the sun in Jerry world is an advantage, or he believes is an advantage for the Dallas Cowboys. He even threw out a number, and that's where he screwed up. He shouldn't have. Jerry Jones don't know how the internet works. He threw out a number, the amount of games they played at that time.
Yeah,
we threw out the number, he's like 58 or something like that. He threw out, and I was like, oh, Jerry shouldn't have done that. So devoted Dallas Cowboys fans have went back and done the research and the deep dive about whether
hate is a strong motivator.
Yes, it is. Whether I'm like, that's a lot of work. I thought about it. I was like, I should do that. I was like, and I saw it. I was like, that's a lot of work to do that.
That's like a 2 Google search where you're like, where you look at it and you're like, the amount of time it's going to take me to figure this out. Like, cause I know if I can figure it out easy, I'll do it easy. But if I can't,
if that's not a website devoted to times of the day where NFL teams play in the glare of the sun, it's like that's a lot of work to do. So I'm gonna leave that to the devoted Dallas Cowboys fans. Well, it didn't take them long. So some folks out there who do sports radio in Dallas, they crunched the numbers already about whether the glare of the sun is indeed an advantage for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll give you those numbers on the other side. Also, we'll discuss some of the game tonight. You got a big game tonight. Speaking of the NFC East, big game tonight coming up between the Eagles and the Commanders. NFC East showdown. We'll discuss that too. But first, let's get educated. Let's get updated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn headline is brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, Victor Wembanyama got his first 50-point game last night when the Spurs beat the Wizards 139-130. Chris Paul added 11 assists in the game, where Wembanyama became the 4th youngest person in NBA history to score 50 points in a game. The Rockets beat the Clippers 111-103 with Tari Eason and Amin Thompson continuing to provide big minutes off the bench, both scoring 18 points and having double-digit rebounds. Tonight, the Mavericks take on the Jazz. In college basketball, the Longhorn women took out Lamar 95-58 in another dominant performance led by Shea Holly and Justice Carlton with 15 points each. They're back in action on Sunday against DePaul. And in the NFL, the Commanders face the Eagles on Thursday Night Football in a matchup for the lead in the NFC East. The Eagles have won 5 out of their last 6 matchups, but the Commanders look to turn that around after having their best start to a season since 1996. And that is your Horn headlines.
Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. I appreciate those. We'll get to previewing that matchup tonight between the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles. But here are the numbers. So yesterday, Jerry Jones, or at least the audio, I think, came out yesterday of Jerry Jones speaking to the folks over at 105.3 The Fan and talking about the glare. All right, the glare from the sun in Jerry world, and how he believes it's an advantage for the Dallas Cowboys, like a part of their home field advantage, even though players themselves, like CeeDee Lamb most recently, has advocated that Jerry Jones use the industrial curtains to block the sun and block the glare of the sun. And so this is from the ticket in Dallas, because Jerry Jones threw out 58 games. I think he said 58 games we played in the sun, with the sun glaring there. And so this is from Pro Football Reference, and they did their own research. So shout out to the ticket for this. So including the playoffs, there have been 131 games at AT&T Stadium. And here's the record by the time of day. So they're 24-11 in 35 home games with a kickoff time from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. They're 29-29 In 58 home games, they kick off from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. A lot of people like that's when they're the glare of the sun. That's the prime window for the glare of the sun when the sun is starting to set there. Then there are 24 and 14 and 38 home games with a kickoff time after 7 p.m. So that's your night games. So the time of day where you get the glare from the sun, or you're dealing with the most glare from the sun, that's when you basically have a 500 record and you have a winning record in the other game windows since AT&T Stadium has been erected. They went even deeper. The Cowboys have played 58. This is the number that Jerry threw out there, 58 games. They've played 58 games in the sun time slot. That's your 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's the sun slot, right? Where you get the most of the glare. Of those, 38 were against teams that finished 500 or better. So we also want to kind of isolate the good teams, right? Not just playing bad teams and beating bad teams. Dallas in those games, those 38 games, in the sun time slot, the sun window, against 5 teams that are 500 or better, 12 and 26 in those games. So not an advantage, or at least I say it's the sun and the glare are not the only reasons they're losing some of those games. Trust me, we know there are a lot of reasons, but it does not seem like the numbers bear out that it's been an advantage for you. And now we have witness statements from players saying it's not an advantage. So only Jerry Jones thinks it's an advantage for his team and their on-field success. Is it an advantage for the marketing and promotion of the team? Hell yes, it is, because we're talking about it right now. So yes, it is working from a marketing and promotion standpoint, but is it actually giving you an advantage on the field? No. You can make the argument actually the other way if you want to, that it's a disadvantage on the field for your coaches and your players. So glad that Ticket did the research. Well done there, gentlemen. Well done.
Yeah.
Or ladies, I don't know who did the research, but well done there to just, the facts. So the facts are just slap in the face, or at least counter whatever Jerry Jones, the nonsense that he is trying to promote.
It feels like
he's throwing out
it
there.
feels like he got that stat before the week before, so he knew it was like 29 and 28 or something. It was like, it's a winning record. Because I can say a winning record, and I'm not lying. And then he forgot to add in another loss.
And definitely didn't do the research about the time slots and
maybe he did, and he just didn't want to say those answers.
That could be true.
I mean, we know
point. Yeah.
You can make stats say what you want him to say.
That's fair. You might be right about that. Maybe he did know that. They were like, Jerry, he's like, I can't put that out there, because that's out there. Then once we've talked about this too, Jerry doesn't want to be proven wrong publicly. And that's why he never admits that he was wrong publicly. So him being proven wrong, or him admitting that he was wrong, he's not going to do that. And this would be him admitting that the construction of the stadium was built and with a miscalculation in mind. If that indeed was the case. Now there are conspiracy theories being developed here. And I love me a good conspiracy theory. All right. And the conspiracy theory, and shout out, somebody sent me this, but there was a deep dive by a reporter, and I'll get his name here in just a second. Here it is. Deep dive by a guy. He's a sports business reporter. Tyler Webb is his name. And shout out to Chuck, because Chuck sent it to me. So he made a thread, and his theory is that it's not just the glare of the sun, that even though that is part of why, Jerry claims that, the aesthetic and the photo ops is why he likes the glare of the sun there, because he wants it to feel like an outdoor stadium. He kept saying that. He claims that it's more about the view that the fans have of the stadium. This guy, Tyler Webb. So he says, give the indoor stadium and outdoor field. That's what Jerry said, because Jerry likes the pictures and the way it looks. He said he admits that could be it, but that's not the full story. He goes on to say, because Jerry could have just as easily kept his big windows and built the stadium facing north-south. However, his claim is that when you look at a map, you realize that if he had done that, basically the view of the fans for the stadium would be of a Walmart parking lot. And he's like, Jerry didn't want that. And he claims also, he says, it seems that he built the stadium east-west so they could overlook the Texas Rangers' old stadium and have more of a, picturesque view for the fans. And maybe it could be because Houston, there's a bit of an eyesore in Houston that next to the Texan Stadium because the old Astrodome is there. Yeah. And it's an eyesore. Like it's hideous. And they can't tear it down because the historical monuments has and all that kind of stuff. So that stuff is considered like, hey, what's the view going to be like here? You always see like the, when they do like the aerial photos for like the primetime games for the Texans, they try not to have the Astrodome in there. They sometimes they'll try to cut it out because it does. I mean, I think they know how much of an eyesore is. And by the way, it smells too. By the way, from somebody who goes, it smells like the Astrodome actually has a smell to it, which is not good. Anyway, so this guy Tyler Webb said when you look at old satellite images of the building site, you realize he says that this group of buildings is the only. He said there's an area that wasn't demolished in 2008 to make room for the stadium. I say one area. It's like that's like one isolated area next to the stadium that wasn't totally demolished to make room for the new stadium. And he claims that this was actually a senior living community. And he said it was the only private property in the surrounding 140 acres that wasn't bulldozed when AT&T Stadium was built. And he said, in his opinion, it's the reason Jerry World has to be built at such an awkward east-west angle. He said he's not sure why they couldn't buy out the senior living facility, but he said it probably would have been bad press to buy it out and have
kick everybody out.
That probably wouldn't have been great optics for Jerry. And maybe they weren't able to buy it out. Who knows about city regulations and code? I have no idea. But he claims like this is actually one of the reasons he thinks a main reason why Jerry decided to build the stadium the way he did, not necessarily because he wanted the sun to shine through the stadium. That's a result of it. But he claims that it's more about the view that the fans have from the stadium and the surrounding real estate complications, I should say, that may have arisen as a result of them building the stadium where they did. So that's another theory. Now you got conspiracy theories about why he built the stadium east and west that may not be about the sun. You have players complaining about it, and Jerry still won't use the damn curtain. Think about how stubborn he is, guys. He still won't do it because he doesn't want to be forced into it. He doesn't want the tail to wag. He doesn't want to have to admit that you know what, the fans might have been right about running back or about these damn curtains. He won't admit it, and I think now he's doing it out of spite. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. It's like, but Jerry, at this point, you have to admit that all the numbers and metrics and the players' statements, it's a hindrance. It's more so right now a disadvantage than an advantage. He still won't do it. It's amazing how stubborn he is. And, pride comes before the fall. This is why the Cowboys will never win a Super Bowl with Jerry Jones as the GM, ultimately. Because a lot of the great GMs around the NFL, they're quick to admit they screwed up. Quick. They'll cut a guy like, screwed up on that. Oh, draft that guy high. Yep. Trade him. Yeah. Messed up. They're quick to admit, like, I messed up. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to double down on a mistake. You don't want to make a mistake and then double down, throw good money after bad. And sometimes Jerry will do that. He'll double down on a mistake instead of admitting, I screwed up. I miscalculated. I'm human. It's all right. All right, we're going to get it right the next time. Nope. Let's just continue down this path that we're on, even though we know that we made an error in judgment and a miscalculation. Let's just see if, the only way out is through, which I love that saying. But for Jerry, it doesn't apply here. But I think Jerry, that's the way he thinks. Like, now we just gotta tough it out all the way through. And it's like, no, you're just digging yourself deeper. You're just digging yourself deeper.
It's all right. We'll hand it off to Zeke. We don't need to. Throw it at the end. We'll just hand it off to Zeke.
That's another. It's like we told you 2 years ago, Cowboys are heading toward a disastrous situation at running back. Nope, didn't want to listen. End up letting Tony Pollard go, and we figured if you're letting Tony Pollard go, you're definitely going to draft a running back. They drafted Deuce. I don't know if they really invested in drafting a running back. Didn't want to trade for one. Didn't want to sign one in free agency. And then we look up and they have the worst running back room in the NFL. And it's like, we saw that coming.
Wait,
didn't we all see that coming?
Let me ask you: does Zeke wear the sunglass visor? Because maybe that's why Jerry likes him. Is because he's figured it out. He wears a sunglass visor. He's like, well, why don't all of you wear the sunglass visor and we'd be fine?
That's true. Does CD wear a visor?
I don't think he does. He maybe does.
Maybe CD should start wearing a visor then.
I mean, just have a different set of helmets for the red zone and when you're playing that side of the field.
Oh, that'd be great if they switched up. Everybody had visor helmets just for when they get to the sun part of the field. That would be amazing. If that's instead of getting the curtains, if they went that, they were that extreme, and they was like, no, everybody's got a different helmet for the glare. That's what we do instead of just putting up a curtain so that you can just block the sun. Originally, that's what we'll do. Nope, you're right. I mean, the Cowboys. I'm telling you, CeeDee Lamb does not. He does not wear. He does not wear a shield, a visor. Oh yeah, he does. Well, sometimes he does. I got some pictures with him with a visor, so I think he does sometimes. Sometimes he does. I think it depends.
I think a lot of guys don't indoors, and that's kind of that indoor-outdoor thing. A lot of guys don't indoors, which AT&T is indoors, but that makes you have the outdoor element, so you're dressed for that. So you just need the other helmet.
Jared did. I mean, he said he wanted an outdoor feel. It does give you an outdoor feel. So that'd be a great passive-aggressive protest by the players. That they all just start wearing different helmets just for the glare, and for 2 series, and they put the other helmet back on, forcing Jared to have to buy extra helmets for everybody.
Yeah, at the quarter break, when you go into the other quarter that you have to play facing the sun, it's like everybody switches helmets.
And then it's a big story on the game. The Cowboys have decided,
at halftime they all come back with the regular helmets again.
Oh man, but that's an easier solution than just putting the curtains up. It's like, hey, Jerry wants that sun, man. He likes the glare. All right, there you go. So Cowboys once again find themselves in a salacious story that has nothing to do with football on the actual field. All right, we'll come back and we'll get into the game tonight. I do want to talk about the game tonight between the Washington Commanders and the Eagles. We'll dive into that matchup and also hit some of the other big matchups this weekend. You got Bills versus the Chiefs. You got Ravens versus the Steelers. I mean, it's going to be a great NFL weekend. So we'll come back, talk about a little bit, all of that more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Baby's coming back on the horn. both good teams, actually. I do worry, though, about not necessarily about the Commanders. We talked about that offense, and that offense has been humming. I do wonder. Cliff Kingsbury's got there's a pattern with Cliff Kingsbury teams, and Cliff Kingsbury offenses probably more so than anything, that right around this time of year they start to fade. Remember all the narrative about him and his teams at Texas Tech, how they start fast and they finish just disastrous. And the Cardinals followed a very similar pattern. It was almost uncanny. Well, his offenses, I found this stat. His offenses have actually, and I don't know if it's teams just figuring out, what his favorite concepts are or what their tendencies are, and him not being able to counter it, not sure. Maybe it's the quarterbacks that he have, but I mean, Kyler Murray's actually right now is playing some of his best football, and Jaden Daniels is having the best rookie season for any quarterback we've ever seen potentially in NFL history. But weeks 1 through 9, Cliff Kingsbury offenses averaged damn near 27 points per game, almost 380 yards per game, and less than 1 turnover per game. But in weeks 10 and after, that number from 27 points per game to 20 points per game, you go from 380 yards to 330, and you go from less than 1 turnover per game, half per game. Something happens with his offenses and his team. Usually, hopefully, that is not the case. Last week was probably the most average performance. Top 5 defense. Legit. People give it enough credit. That defense is long. They only had 2 versus the Pittsburgh. And Jaden Daniels was held in check for the first time all season as a runner. He only had 3 rushes for 5 yards. He had a 50% completion rate. It was Jaden Daniels. Now, I mean, it's rookies are going to have inconsistent defense, which is top 5 defense, or trend, that pattern I just talked about, all of those factors. Versus the Eagles state, if that, like I said, and maybe this is kind of the wall Washington is hitting. There's always a rookie wall and a surprise team reality where, we know what they are at that point, and I think the Washington. I still think Washington is a good team. We may be starting to witness some of their limitations. But here, look at in this matchup, they hit their stride. Offensively, Saquon Barkley's almost at 1,000 yards already. I have 1,000. Saquon, it really is. 1,700 yards this season, and he's averaged last 4 games. He's averaged over 6 in the last 4 games. He's getting running back position has had after the discussion we had for years about and how the running back position, bell cow running back and all that. Derrick Henry, Saquon, running back's position right now is getting. I think it's getting their much deserved recognition.
Yeah, the running back renaissance is happening right now.
Running back doesn't matter as much. It is. It feels like that anyway. Even the Texans, right? Joe Mixon was before last game. Kareem Hunt has been the Kansas City Chiefs has done.
Yeah.
Too, right? You're supposed to be at geriatric at around. You got these guys they're approaching 30. Derrick Henry's like 30, and Joe Mixon's now. So good for the running back. The rest. Getting back to it, Jalen so hitting his stride as a runner. He has 8 rushes in the last 4 games, and his average yards a carry in the last 4 games. I worry about which in the last 3 games they've allowed over 5 yards in the last 3 games in yards per rush allowed. Bad matchup in that situation too. For the Eagles, seems to be finding its stride. I will say, and if you got a fantasy, you got a carry on it, you gonna be just goes off. Remember how there's always players like all the time. Like there's some players they play teams. I don't know what it is. And Scary Terry's like that with the Eagles. He's yards and 4 touchdowns and 10 against the Eagles. So yeah. And over the past 4 games, 95 yards receiving in the last 4 games versus the Eagles. And this offense with him, Scary Terry, with Jaden Daniels might be prolific as any team in the NFL when it's clicking. Have they hit a bit of a wall? That's what I think will be answered tonight. Did you realize that Dante Fowler has 8.5 sacks for the Commanders?
I did not.
He was on the Cowboys. I don't know if he was. He's 8.5 sacks. That is crazy.
Dan Quinn knows how to use him.
I didn't think he had that in him, but that's why I think exactly. That's why I think Dan Quinn liked this guy. He's a pass rusher. I didn't realize that he's going to end up with double-digit sacks. But the defense for the Commanders, I remember they got the Marshawn Lattimore deal done. Missed Sunday's loss, and he's out for this game too. Working back, I think he's got like a hamstring or something. They're working him back from. So they got him because they have some holes in their pass defense. Is my point. Their pass rush is actually pretty good. Their pass rush has been pretty good. I think, and I talked about their run defense. They've been struggling on just stop the run lately, but they really were getting lit up a little bit in the secondary. So that still may be the case. So I think the Eagles pick here, and then that would be bad news for Washington when losing 2 in a row. So I don't know. Right now, playing better football, but not like anybody's playing bad football. They had a 1-point loss to Pittsburgh, but I feel like overall they're trending more than Washington is. I like the way the Eagles are playing football right now. The running game's back, and finally, it seems like Jalen Hurts is becoming more and more comfortable in that Kellen Moore offense. They're running a lot of pre-snap motion in that Kellen Moore offense. The pass protection is a little bit better in that Kellen Moore offense. So that's also something is why the offense is kicking, because now I think they're figuring out what Kellen Moore wants, figuring out how to make that offense more compatible with Jalen Hurts and what he does. All right, so there you go. That's the game in Washington and between Philadelphia. We'll a little bit more about NFL news, notes, and nuggets, some of the NFL games coming up next hour, because I want to get to that Ravens game, and I want to talk a little bit about the Chiefs and the Bills coming up this weekend too. We'll also get into the topic that came up yesterday. Anthony Richardson now a starting quarterback again for the Indianapolis Colts after being benched for Joe Flacco just a couple of weeks. Dive into that too, since that's relevant to the Texans in the same division. We'll talk about that a little bit, and we'll get into a little bit since we're talking about quarterbacks. We haven't Kyler Murray. We talked about quarterbacks who are playing their best football, kind of under the radar. Is it fair to say radar? And Kyler Murray's performance has been under the radar too. That we talk about the quarterbacks in the NFL going around. We'll get into the Caleb Williams thing a little bit too. Some of his own teammates wanted him benched. In addition to Shane Waldron being fired, they wanted Caleb Williams benched. Why would they want him benched? I'll give you some of the numbers of that as well later on the show. When we come back, what the facts, what the stats, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to what the facts, what the stats. How about this one? Over the past 2 weeks, some good news for Cowboys fans. Cowboys are averaging 5.2 yards per carry, third best in the NFL. Rico Dowdle. How about that? See, they should give him the ball more. And honestly, they might need to think about extending Rico. He's cheap right now. Just extend him. And you got your backup running back going for it. You ain't got to worry about your backup running back.
Do the Cowboys have a history of extending people at a reasonable time?
No, no, they don't. But I'm just saying this is a great time to break habits and start getting to some good organizational habits of, hey, sign the guy before he gets to the point where you got to pay max value for him. Right now, he's trending. So, pay now.
You invested so much into him because you invested like 3 or 4 years into this guy that you kept saying he was going to be the guy, and we're building him up, and he's going to be there, and we trust Dowdle, we trust Rico, we trust him. So he finally gets there, and now you're probably going to let him walk in free agency.
Yeah, and let him go to some other team and have his best season.
Because you're going to call up and go, look what we did for you. It's like, come on, man, that's not how this works.
No, sign him on the cheap right now. This is the cheapest he's probably going to get, because I think he's going to, with your quarterback situation, you're about to start handing him the rock a lot.
Yeah.
And he's probably about to start to show it out. So right now, you get him on the cheap.
I mean, we saw the Panthers. They got Hubbard.
Yeah, I mean, and Hubbard. I mean, you're right, because they got Jonathan Brooks there as a lead back. Yeah, they signed Hubbard. It's a good point. But they think he's homegrown. He's our guy. We like him. Good point. I agree with the Cowboys. You're right. They don't operate that way. Getting back to some other facts and stats. Oh, you know what? Might as well stay with the Cowboys stuff. I'm sorry, Cowboys fans. Dallas Cowboys wide receivers. They have had less than a yard of separation from the nearest defender on 22.8% of their targets this season. That does lead the NFL. Yeah, or that's the worst in the NFL, however you want to say it. They have had less than a yard of separation from their nearest defender. So Dak has had to make a lot of tight window throws when he was in there. And so is Cooper Rush going to have to make a lot of tight window throws. And so is Trey Lance going to have to make a lot of tight window throws. That's why Rico Dowdle running the rock is important, because the receivers, they're not creating a lot of separation. The Dallas Cowboys wide receivers had the second fewest average yards of separation at the time of the target arriving across the NFL. So, second fewest average yards of separation in the league. So, Cowboys, the issues they got to get more explosive on the outside too. They got to get more twitchy on the outside. They need more depth on the outside in the perimeter skill position, but they also need to be twitchier, more explosive. We talk about that in the backfield. They don't have a back that's explosive enough to turn a 5-yard run into a 10-yard run. But I think on the outside with the wide receivers, I think it's the same thing. I don't think they're twitchy enough. CeeDee Lamb's awesome. He's great. But the rest of them, there's a significant drop off, especially with Brandon Cooks being unavailable. And he's old, by the way. So Father Time is undefeated. He's losing some of his, punch. He's losing some of his dynamic, explosive potential as well. I think they need to start prioritizing that at the wide receiver position. All right. More what the facts with the stats. Oh, this is a factoid. It's a Texans related one. So I gave you some Cowboys facts. Let's give some Texans facts. Did you realize in the fourth quarter of that game against Detroit, where the Texans are up, I think 23-20, and they get a penalty, they get a false start penalty, and this comes from some credible sources in Houston, even Stephanie Stradley, who writes about the Texans at Cron.com. She was talking about it as well. She wrote an article actually about it last year, and it kind of came up that the Lions fans at NRG, that they were so loud that they forced that basically they're the reason that the Texans got a false start penalty in the fourth quarter.
That's crazy.
No, they've acknowledged it. She said defending home field is harder, especially for non-legacy teams, since the digital tickets from COVID, the COVID adjustment, that's exacerbated that issue for teams like the Texans. She says, I've talked to many people, Tech and Texans, they want help not fingerprinting getting help, getting more tickets to Texans. She said she wrote in depth about it last year, but it's a problem. And yeah, the Texans reporter for ESPN, he said the opposing fans also made the Texans go silent count on a few snaps.
That's
in their own damn stadium. They had to go silent count because the Lions fans were so loud.
And their Texans are good this year.
Isn't that crazy? That's wild. That's unfortunate. And yeah, so I know it's packed because I got friends who go and they're like, "Oh no, it's a hot ticket." So I guess what she's saying is that the opposing team, they're able to infiltrate because of the digital ticket policies. They're able to infiltrate now, and just it's not that the Texans fans don't want the tickets. It's just that Lions fans have more accessibility to get them now. The opposing fans do, and they're doing a good job of coming down to Houston and supporting their team. That's good. Yeah. So indeed, they said it's not only was a problem in the game versus the Lions because Lions fans are traveling now more than ever because the Lions are good. I see more Lions fans, traveling more now too because I keep up with the Lions as one of my old teams. But they said the Texans. I'm gonna go back and read this article. She said, "Oh no, it was a problem last year. Such a problem that I wrote an article about it. That the opposing fans were so loud and had such a representation at Texans games." I hadn't been to one in a few years, so I don't know. I hadn't been to a Texans game probably it's probably like 3 years since I've been in. No, actually before COVID. So that's the last time I went to one was before COVID. So I hadn't been to one since then. So she said after COVID everything kind of changed, but they weren't good then. So it was also I don't know, the support. It was not as overwhelming as it is now, like the city and everybody supporting them. So it wasn't as hot of a ticket back then either. So I don't know, but that actually is fact that the Lions fans were so loud at the Texans game at NRG that they caused a false start, and the Texans had to go with a silent count on a few snaps because of it. Crazy. Yeah. All right. Anyway, that's what the facts, what the stats, even though it's bad ones. What the facts, what the stats. We'll come back. We'll get into Longhorn, Arkansas conversation. We'll talk about their upcoming rivalry game with the Arkansas Razorbacks. We'll also dive into more NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Big games this weekend. Chiefs and the Bills. I believe the Chiefs are still an underdog. That's rare. And honestly, it's probably why you need to put some money on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's also rare for an undefeated team to be an underdog, period. We'll give you some of those numbers. We'll also talk about the Ravens and the Steelers. This is the game, whether people are going to start taking this Steelers team for real. How they perform versus the Ravens is going to be a big part of that discussion. So we'll talk about that too on the other side. Right there on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire, Patrick Davis, he comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. But on a new theme Thursday, he comes up with a creative new theme that is relevant to each and every one of us. And because it is Texas-Arkansas rivalry week, they are rekindling the rivalry in the SEC conference. And we know that Arkansas hates Texas more than they love themselves. All the songs are a tribute to that hated rivalry between Texas and Arkansas. So all the songs mentioned reference hate in one way, form, or another. So we appreciate Patrick with all of his creativity and energy hooking us up with a new theme Thursday. We also appreciate his efforts hooking us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day. How many rushing yards will Texas allow to Arkansas? That is our question for today. We gave you a couple options. Right now, 90 to 120 is winning with 56% of the vote. Then 120 to 150 with 29%, 15% for 0 to 90, and no one has touched 150 plus yet. So the Arkansas fans still don't know how to work the internet.
Well done. Yeah. Hey, you want to be a rival? Hey, we got to take some jabs. There you go. Come on now. I know you said somebody hit you up and said, hey, you should be taking shots at Jerry Jones because he's an Arkansas guy. Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
I forgot that Jerry Jones is an Arkansas guy. It all makes so much sense now.
As to why he's so annoying this week specifically. I forgot all about that actually, that he was an Arkansas grad. So that's pretty cool. Maybe him and Demo got a little bet going on or something like that.
They should bet for the number 0, right?
Oh, yeah. That's actually, I forgot about that because is it Rowdy?
Rowdy, the mascot, yeah.
Mascot? Yeah, no, literally, that was a legitimate reason. That's what Jerry Jones gave the reason to Demo as why he couldn't get the number. We thought Demo was joking. Demo was like, no, it's not a joke. I was told that I can't wear 0 because that is Rowdy's number. I'm like, damn, Jerry's all about his marketing and promotion, man. He's like, no, Rowdy has been established with 0. There's a lot of memorabilia. We got bobbleheads, everything that's out there with that of 0. I got to change everything just for you. Nope, until you maybe become an all-pro, then we'll do it.
See, that's
Pro Bowl all-pro.
The coyote for the Spurs, they did it right. It's 2 exclamation points. So there's an exclamation point in his number. So clearly it's a different number than what other people have.
That's actually not bad. That's a smart way to do it because at least you have to worry about, oh man, it might conflict with a player wanting that number. But nope, that is only Dallas Cowboys have that problem. That one of their best young players wants a number that that will inspire him, that'll it intrinsically motivates him. And Jerry's like, nah, man, that's the mascot's number. Mascot's more important than your play on the field and how you feel when you play. Oh man, you can't write like literally this, like even the curtains thing with the glaring sun, and it's like, does Jerry Jones know how ridiculous that he sounds sometimes? It's almost like he's a character in some book, but he's not. That's a caricature of himself. But no, that's Jerry Jones, man, and that's why the Cowboys are the number 1 TV star, the number 1 TV show.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Demo, I saw this tweet yesterday. I think CB retweeted it from Micah Parsons. Someone was tweeting about who the Cowboys should take in the draft, and Micah Parsons tweeted this back in response: "Give me Anthony Hill from Texas with Demo, Jalen Walker, my favorite Abdul Carter." But he was talking good about Anthony Hill until people started to point out that Anthony Hill not draft eligible this year.
Yeah, not draft eligible yet, but he's watching.
But he's watching. Demo's got him watching.
He's watching. That's pretty good. I wonder if he's watching because Demo told him, like, nah, man, we got to. You think I'm cold? We got another one behind me that's a monster. That's a beast. That's pretty cool though.
And then
that's pretty badass.
Someone sent out the Hill can't come out yet, and his response was, "Damn, he play like a grown man. He's special."
Damn right he is. And you know what? We're gonna need him to be special this week against that Arkansas running game.
So
bringing it full circle, which is the topic for the Big Fat Bowl today.
There you go.
Right?
All together.
It comes full circle. So they're gonna need him to be a beast this week versus that running game. It's one of the best in college football, and we'll see if they have all of their. Matter of fact, we'll go over the availability report. We'll see if they have all of their run game assets available to them. A couple of them listed, actually. I think half the backfield. It's actually listed on the availability report, but we'll give you the status of those coming up here after we get into the Horn headlines. We'll get to those here in just a second. We'll also, in Behind the Burn Curtain, we'll talk Texas versus Arkansas as well. We'll get into Texas' favorite run concept that hasn't really been clicking so far this year. Sark was asked about it, and I thought he had a really insightful comment about how what they're trying to achieve. But maybe a big part of why the run game isn't clicking this year, not the way they want it, is because their go-to staple concept in the running game has not been very effective so far this season. Something that Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Brooks made their money on. Became the first running back taken off the board because of Texas was so good running this concept, and they haven't been that good at it this year. We'll talk about that when we go behind the Burn Orange curtain. But first, let's get educated, let's get updated, let's get informed with all the top stories today with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, Victor Wembanyama got his first 50-point game last night as the Spurs beat the Wizards 139-130. Chris Paul added 11 assists in the game, where Wembanyama became the fourth youngest player in NBA history to score 50 points in a game. The Rockets beat the Clippers 111-103 with Tari Eason and Amin Thompson continuing to provide big minutes off the bench, both scoring 18 points and having double-digit rebounds. Tonight, the Mavericks take on the Jazz. In college basketball, the Longhorn women took out Lamar 95-58 in another dominant performance led by Shea Holly and Justice Carlton with 15 points each. They are back in action on Sunday against DePaul. And in the NFL, the Commanders face the Eagles on Thursday Night Football in a matchup for the lead in the NFC East. The Eagles have won 5 out of their last 6 matchups, but the Commanders look to turn that around after having their best start to a season since 1996, and that is your Horn headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines there. Yeah, I'm telling you, the Eagles have really, and tonight you'll be able to witness it, they've really shifted their identity somewhat. And maybe it's because of the A.J. Brown. Remember, A.J. Brown was dealing with an injury, and, he was out for a few games. They are a different offense without A.J. Brown there, too. Like that, yeah. There's no question. How about this? They played 9 games this season at 6-0 straight up when A.J. Brown has played, averaging 30 points per game. And when he's been out, they're 1-2, averaging 17 points per game. Like I said, it is a very different offense. But I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make themselves A.J. Brown proof. Like, where they don't necessarily, he's additive, but they don't need him in order to be, or maybe they just have 2 different offenses. When A.J. Brown's here, we got an offense we're going to run. And when A.J. Brown's not here, we got an offense that we can run that can help us win games still. And they just focus on the run game. And how about this? This is a little factoid for you. And I know we'll get to the availability report, talk Texas, Arkansas here in a second. And we'll also get to some other big games, big matchups this weekend in the NFL. Ravens, Steelers, which is a huge one. We'll also get to the Chiefs and Bills, another big one. How about this stat about the Eagles? Just trying to add to my take that I just had, that they're just very different offenses with and without A.J. Brown. They are on pace for 612 rush attempts. The record is 681. Like they're running the ball a ton. Like, we hadn't seen them run the ball this much. And like I said, a lot of it's Kellen Moore, and I think his adjustment that no, we're going to start leaning on Saquon Barkley. I told you he's on pace for 1,700 yards. He's like 9 yards shy of 1,000 already. And so a healthy Saquon they're leaning on, and then added with Jalen Hurts, who in the last 4 games, he's got 8 rushing touchdowns. So they've really figured out what their identity is in the run game. And I think the purpose of that was, well, if A.J. Brown's here, then offense is clicking. We ain't got nothing to worry about. But if A.J. Brown's not here, we need to be able to have a certain offensive identity that we can lean on. And I think that the run game is that identity. But, man, when they have all their available pieces, they're scary. And I think that's why, there's a lean toward Philly for me in this matchup. But, we just don't know if Washington's hit a wall or not. And maybe it is. Cliff Kingsbury's teams always hit a wall around this time. Rookies hit a wall somewhere around this time. Sometimes surprise teams, the luster wears off because the blueprint is out there a little bit. Now, I'm all saying all this, and they had a 1-point loss to Pittsburgh, which is just a good defense. And Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches out there, and Russell Wilson's playing some of his best football. So that may not be true at all either. I think tonight will largely determine that, whether indeed they've hit some kind of wall. If one of those factors has hit a bit of a wall.
Well, and I mean, these Thursday night football games, a lot of the time are defensive battles. The offenses just don't get going very well in them. So
also true.
I won't say it's over even if they don't play well in this. And the Eagles just do have a really good defense as well. So, if you go against them, the Eagles defense is second overall, fifth in rush, third in pass. And they're tied for fifth in scoring. So this is a top 5 defense as well for this Eagles team. And on Thursday night football, where it is just hard to get going. Now, if you're able to have Jaden Daniels pull that rookie magic out, sometimes that works on a Thursday night football where you scramble around and get going a little bit more. But this could be a very big defensive struggle on a Thursday night just because that's how these Thursday night games go.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. And I think that's even more so why the Eagles will just try to run the rock against Washington. Eliminates a lot of those potential, like you're talking about, miscues that you have on a short week, execution errors, things of that nature, sloppy football. I think you might get the Eagles just running the ball a ton. As I mentioned, they've been running it as much as any team probably in the league in the last 3 to 4 weeks or so. All right, so we'll talk more about that Thursday night matchup. We'll also talk about the other big games coming up in the NFL, and I want to get into some of the quarterback stories happening right now in the league. The Anthony Richardson story, I think, is a relevant one. Apparently, Caleb Williams, the report is that some guys on the team, actually teammates, they wanted him benched. That is an interesting story. I want to get to that a little bit. We'll talk about it. And I think who may be the most under the radar quarterback who is playing at a really high level in 2024. We'll talk about that too when we get into some of the quarterback stories in the league. But let's talk about the availability report that came out yesterday, the second one for the SEC. The Longhorns that are listed on the availability report. As we've grown accustomed to, the 3 running backs who've been out for the most of the season, C.J. Baxter, Christian Clark, and Velton Gardner, they are out. Derek Williams Jr., remember, he has been out since kind of the midway point of the season after that Oklahoma game. He's out for the rest of the season. The guys who are doubtful, this one is a bit of a surprise. Maurice Blackwell, he is listed as doubtful, and Colton Vasek is listed as doubtful. Remember, Colton Vasek was unavailable last week. I'm not sure. I've not seen a report of what the specific injury is with Vasek, and have not seen a report about where it happened, or if it happened in the game, or if this is something that happened he sustained during practice. Not really sure about that. Mo Blackwell Jr., it would be to me, it would be troublesome and problematic if you didn't have young linebacker like Ty Anthony Smith and Liam Lafau, who stepped up for you already, and you'd be worried about the depth at linebacker. But with Hill and Benda already playing at a high level, leading the way for you, and then a Ty Anthony Smith lately, who's been playing a lot of critical reps, and then you got Liam Lafau, who's been playing great football. I think you got 4 guys that you can depend on. So you would have it'd be great to have the luxury of another linebacker to throw in there, but they got bodies. They got dudes at linebacker. So I think they're fine depth wise there. And at edge, they didn't have Colton Vasek last game, but as we've talked about, that's one of the deepest positions on the team right now is the edge position. Barron Terrell, Ethan Berg, Colin Simmons throwing out there. I mean, he's been playing really well. Too. So, and Trey Moore, of course, had his best game of the season last game versus Florida. So once again, no depth concerns there at the edge position. But both of those guys are listed as doubtful. Maurice Blackwell and Colton Vasek listed as doubtful for the Arkansas game, which means they're not going to make the trip because you got a travel squad. So if they're doubtful on this report, I doubt you see those guys making the trip at all to Fayetteville. Arkansas's players who are out, a lot of DBs. 3 DBs are out. Selman Bridges, Jalen Braxton, and Anthony Switzer. DBs that are out. They have a D lineman, Anton Junkaj, who is also out. And they have a kicker, Kyle Ramsey, who's out. That is problematic. Nobody has depth at with their specialist positions on the team. It just doesn't work that way. You don't, nobody tries to build depth at long snapper and kicker and punter. So there's usually a significant drop off from your starting kicker or starting punter. So there has been, Kyle Ramsey wasn't that, I'll give you some of the numbers later. He wasn't that consistent, but there's some Arkansas fans that believe the backup may be an upgrade, because he's got a stronger leg, not necessarily more accurate, but it's a stronger leg. So that's the situation with the kicker for the Razorbacks. They have Braylon Russell, the running back, who's averaging, over 6 yards per carry. The true freshman, 250 pounds. I think he's like 6'2", 250. He's a load. He's questionable for this game. Now, he was available in the Ole Miss game and did play in that game. And they did have a bye week. So the hope would be, I guess, if you're Arkansas, that he will be upgraded from questionable to probable. But Taylon Green and Jaquindon Jackson both listed as probable. And I heard Sam Pittman say on one of his, or at least during one of his media availabilities, that Taylon Green practiced all week during the bye week, and they expect him to play. And Jaquindon Jackson, he has been unavailable for the last couple of weeks. Remember, he is the former Longhorn who transferred from Texas. He was playing quarterback at the time, transferred to Utah, switched positions at Utah from quarterback to running back, and then transferred to Arkansas, and actually started out the season as one of the best running backs in the country, averaging over 5.5 yards per carry. But he's been dealing with an injury. I believe it's an ankle injury, so he has been on the availability or unavailable and been on the injury report for the last couple of games, but he's probable. And I imagine it's personal for him getting to play Texas again. So Jaquindon Jackson, Taylon Green, expect those guys to be upgraded or removed from this availability report entirely, probably by tomorrow. And Braylon Russell is, that's the one I think that could be hugely, that could be a huge detriment to Arkansas and what they want to do. He's a physical presence. Texas really hadn't played a running back like him, 250 pounds, who runs with that kind of power and gets that kind of downhill lean going. They just haven't had to face a running back that's that size, 250 naturally. So that would be good for Texas. It'd be a huge, I think, detriment to Arkansas and a blow to Arkansas's offense, because the added element of the power run game with him, the speed of Taylon Green, testing your edges, Jaquindon Jackson and Braylon Russell, just being able to run downhill and pound the rock, and then the deep threat of Armstrong on the outside. That's when they're most dangerous. And when they don't have one of those elements, the offense isn't as explosive. But if they got all of them, they can do some damage. They can really present some problems to you. So we'll see. That's the one to watch. Braylon Russell, whether he's going to be questionable, I think obviously the other guys are out, but Taylon Green and Jaquindon Jackson probable. But man, they'll play. Both of those guys are going to play. Yeah.
No, I feel like those guys are not in the even. He's not even pretending that they're not going to play. Not doing the old. Well, they're questionable. That he's just like, they're going to play. We're just putting them on there to follow the rules, and they're somewhat limited in practice or whatever. So we're gonna put them through. But yeah, I mean, for 250, a 6'1", 250-pound running back,
dude, he's a beast.
Especially when you start to go into a game where there's probably going to be some 4-down territories for Arkansas.
Oh, that's a good point too.
If you get those really short runs, to get a guy like that who can just probably get you a yard by leaning over.
3 yards in a cloud of dust is all they need against Texas. They can get 3.5 yards, and they can do that consistently and get themselves, like you said, into a 4th and 1. They'll take it.
Exactly. And so you'll see that come up probably in this game of 4-down territory, especially if Texas is able to get a couple of points up on the board early. And, that's when coaches usually realize, man, we got to go now. Because if they pull away, we're done. So we gotta stay in this game. So we got to go for it on 4th down. Field goals don't matter anymore. And that's when having a guy like that you can just lean on the line with is big.
It does. I agree with you. Like I said, you got any short yardage and you got a 250-pound running back, that seems like a no-brainer. And they got so many good backs, though. Like I said, we talking about Braylon Russell, a true freshman, averaging 6.5 yards per rush, right? He's got 47 rushes on the season, so they use him. Jaquindon Jackson he's their main marquee bell cow, averaging 5.7 yards per rush. But he's been hurt, but like we just talked about, he's going to play. And then you got this kid, Dubinion, He's got 32 rushes on season, so they use him, sparingly. He's averaging damn near 6 yards per rush, 5.8 yards per rush. They got another running back, Hill, who they, like I said, he plays sparingly. He gets like 2-3 carries a game. Man, this dude's averaging 5.2 yards per rush. Like all their running backs are just very efficient. They all averaging, if they got more than 10 carries in their running backs got over 10 carries, they're all averaging over 5 yards per rush. So that backfield, I think it's just as talented, if not more talented, than Florida. But they have a dual threat quarterback, a +1 in the running game, that's going to make them that running game a little bit more dangerous because you have to account for that +1 in all situations, no matter what's going on. So I can't wait to see how the Texas defense. Here's one little stat, and then we'll go behind the burn orange curtain and talk a little bit more in depth about the matchup. But shout out to my man CJ Vogel, because he pointed this stat out to me, and I couldn't believe it. Went back and looked it up myself. I should, because CJ's fantastic. Always does a great job. If you're looking at fumbles, like I said, they run the ball a lot. If you're looking at fumbles, guys, Arkansas is 133rd out of 134 teams in fumbles on the season. The only team that's fumbled more than Arkansas this season is Oklahoma. Oklahoma's fumbled 23 times. Arkansas's fumbled 22. Isn't that crazy? Now, Oklahoma's lost 13 of them. Arkansas's only lost 8, but they fumbled 22 times on the season. Only one team in all of college football has fumbled more than Arkansas. Did Texas get a fumble in Oklahoma? Did they force a fumble? Had to.
They had.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah. It was Derek Williams, right? Didn't he force it?
That sounds right, but
I think it was Derek Williams that forced it. Anyway, I believe it's him. If I'm not mistaken, it was. But I didn't. Isn't that mind blowing? 22. Texas should all week long. I'm sure all the drills, stripping. We punching it out. We stripping the football. Hell, we were just talking about on the Texas side how Texas had Jared Gibson going to class, right, holding the football high and tight to teach him a lesson about ball security, which is, I think of an old school technique, that old school method that all coaches use when your running backs are fumbling the football too much. I was actually talking to Fozzie Whitaker and Jeremy Hills about it early this week. But man, we think we got some ball security issues. 22, guys. Texas has, just to compare, Texas has 10. Texas has 10 fumbles on the season. They've lost. Now Texas has lost. They lost 7 of their fumbles. I would say that the ratio is not high. You lost 70% of your fumbles.
Yeah,
but I would say that but still 22, more than double the amount of fumbles. And we think we got a ball security issue.
I mean, there was a couple of fumbles. Are those because like Quinn and Arch both have fumbles that were hits on sacks and so there's a few that honestly, were quarterback.
DeAndre Moore had one in that last game, I thought. Remember, he dropped it early on and then ended up getting on top of it. Quinn had one like that. What game was it where he got sacked and then he kind of fumbled and fell on top of it too?
Yeah. But there was a couple. I think Georgia, they both quarterbacks fumbled the ball. And
both. I'm talking about they lost them in those games, right?
Yeah.
They lost the fumbles. Yeah. I've seen them where they fumble it and they just kind of fall right back on top of it. Jerry Gibson did that.
Yep.
Remember, he had the one where he fumbles like the handoff and then he kind of awkwardly tries to pick it up instead of fall on it, and then it looks like my daughter like trying to corral a ball. Like he falls on it and falls on his butt and then falls on the butt. It was a weird situation. But I see why they said, "No, man, you need," because you're right. He had 2 fumbles in that game.
Yeah. He lost one, but he had 2 fumbles.
He lost one, but he had 2 fumbles in that game. So, but I didn't 22 guys. So Texas, go for the ball. Go for the football. I'll go try to find the individual numbers, find out who fumbles the most, but it don't matter. You got an offense with 22 fumbles.
You know who you don't want to see if you're Arkansas. Then you don't want to see Michael Taft, because Michael Taft will come after that.
Oh, Taft Daddy will. I agree. I think Anthony Hill will. I think he's got that kind of skill too.
I think Anthony Hill will
he's
too.
One of those guys, right?
Yeah,
he's a
those
next
are guys
level guy
that are like, when they know there's a fault in your game, are going to come right after it.
I think Jade is like that. Somebody savvy defenders who are like, you know what? If I'm the second guy that comes in and my one defender's already got you corralled, I'm coming for the ball.
Yes.
Like some guys, remember, so there's some guys who just think ball. They call them ball hawks. They think ball. They're ball centric ball-oriented defenders. We talked about this all offseason and how the secondary now has ball hawks, guys who think ball on that back end, and not guys who are just good defenders. Like I was a man coverage defender, but everything to me was ball takes me to man. I mean, so man takes me to ball. Like then, so I played through the actual offensive player a lot of the times, and I was pretty good. I mean, I was all conference, I was an All-American. But if you truly want to be elite and great, you got to play ball. You got to be the guy that goes after the ball and plays the football. And I played with guys like that. Nathan Vasher was like that. Derek Johnson was like that. Good Lord, Derek Johnson was all. I mean, dude, I don't think he ever made a play not going after the football. I mean, he's the one that had the tomahawk punch or whatever it is. He was doing that as a freshman, guys. He did it as a freshman. We started doing the drill because Carl Burry saw him do it and was like, y'all all should be doing that. We're gonna teach all y'all to do what he does. Do what he does. And we all started doing the drill to try to punch the football out because Derek Johnson was so good at it. Michael Huff was a ball-centric, ball-oriented defender. Those are the guys that end up being great. You want to be good, you can be like I was and, play through the man, have the man take you to the ball. You want to be great? Go get the ball.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of the sport is the ball. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to get beat anyway. And I was trying not to get beat. That's not the way to play. Go play to win, not to get beat. And I was playing like kind of not to lose and not to get beat. But should have been playing out there to go get the ball, go attack the football. And I think now that's the key to the Texas secondary is a lot of them think ball. Makuba's a ball kind of guy who thinks ball. Jade Barron is a guy that's a ball hawkish kind of ball centric guy. You just talked about Michael Taft, who's smart enough. Michael Taft had 3 interceptions last year. He was one of your best ball hawking defenders. Malik Muhammad is a guy that thinks ball. I think that's what they have back there now. And it's just a different vibe in that secondary, as you know. My secondary that I was in, we had a little healthy mix of both, but they got damn near everybody back there has that type of mentality going after the football. So anyway, we'll get to that. Let's talk about the Texas-Arkansas game on the other side. This run concept is Texas' favorite run concept since Sark has come to Texas as the play caller and head coach. And this season, this is probably the most ineffective they've been running this play. And there's a theory, and maybe it's my theory, that a big part of why the running game has just been average at this point is because they have not really figured out how to effectively maximize this concept like they have in the previous year since Sark has been here. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the favorite concepts that Arkansas likes to run and which one of those concepts may translate to the game plan versus Texas based on probably what they saw versus Florida, because Florida ran the rock, almost 200 yards rushing. They were inconsequential, irrelevant rushing yards that mostly happened in the second half when Texas was conceding the run. Yes, all those things are true, but damn near 200 is damn near 200. So I'm sure they're looking at it and saying, hey, if Florida can do this, maybe we also can replicate some of those results. So we'll come back and we'll talk about Texas versus Arkansas, dive deep into the matchup right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. When we go behind the burnt orange curtain here, talk some Texas, Arkansas. I saw this quote yesterday. Shout out to Wes Scott Eberts, who published the quote from Sark from his media availability yesterday. They were asking him about the wide zone, the outside zone play, which is, for those it's the bread and butter of Texas kind of run game. That's since Sark has been here, that has been their most popular concepts in terms of reps in the run game. They run the wide zone, split wide zone. That's usually when you have Gunnar Helm in the backfield and he do that split flow action in the backfield. And the wide zone is basically off tackle. They're trying to get to the edge, leaves room open for the cutback. Against Oklahoma, remember the big plays they broke in the running game? That was that split wide zone. Oklahoma couldn't figure it out, or at least they didn't early on. That was Sark's big adjustment in the run game. Weisner broke the 36-yarder. That was on the split wide zone. The 43-yard touchdown run, that was on the split wide zone. They had 3 rushes of 10 yards or more versus Oklahoma by running backs. They were all split wide zone, and they were and it was all in that time, in that like right within the same range. I want to say right there in the second quarter. And it was right before Brent Venables figured out what was going on and made the adjustment. And honestly, you could make the argument, I did, that Sark's feel of the game and Sark's quick-witted adjustment and counter to go to that split wide zone when he did, it won Texas that game, or at least it allowed Texas to separate in that game because it was before Brent Venables made the adjustment. And once he made the adjustment, Texas never got any big runs off that run again. They never got any big runs off any of their run concepts. But Sark figured out after doing some troubleshooting, split wide zone is going to work. And he was adamant and he was stubborn about it. And I always say, I'll tell you, Sark needs to become an extremist sometimes. Like, just because it didn't work once, or if it worked once, come back to the well again. Play the hits. So anyway, that's their best run concept. At least it has been since Sark has been here, and they're most popular, and they love it. And they run the wide zone. They run, like I said, the split wide zone, and it hasn't been working this year. Like it's worked with Bijan and like it worked with Jay Brooks. And I guess nothing works as well as it worked with Bijan and Jay Brooks. But that was a big part of why those guys were so successful. That was one of their bread and butter run plays. So Sark was asked about why it's not hitting, even though you got your mojo back, right? Because they got your mojo back versus Florida, but still the wide zone wasn't the reason why. And they didn't really get the run game going until the third quarter. They kind of got the run game going, and by then the game was out of hand, and the game was out of hand because of the passing game. That's your identity, as I've stated. So here's Sark's quote about the outside zone. We're just not in sync. And like any style running game that you have, timing and being in sync is really important, and confidence is really important. So whether it's angles on blocks, whether it's run timing with the running back and the offensive line, whether it's vision by the runners, whether it's our combination of blocks on the front side or the combination of blocks on the back side, it just hasn't quite been in sync. He said, so it's like anything. We've got to emphasize it more. We've got to put in the time and effort, which I think we're doing. And then we've got to start to find our rhythm there again. I talked about a lot about going into last week's game, about finding our mojo on offense, which I think we did. This week, it's been about, okay, how do we get back to our timing and execution of our outside zone? So, because like I said, it's their kind of go-to staple in the running game. They love the inside zone too, but not as much as they like the outside zone. They love it like this. They like the inside zone. They love the outside zone. And then they sprinkle in there. They throw in their power and their gaps concepts, duo and the counter trade, of course. But if you go look at the totality of the season, at least based on last year, nothing is as popular of a concept as their wide zones concepts, their outside zone. So Sark is admitting there, maybe that's one of the reasons that we haven't seen the running game really take off just yet. All right, let's talk about the running game for Arkansas. Let's talk about the concepts that Arkansas likes to run, because I was looking at, shout out to StatCat, I was looking at some of their staples the things that really they like to run, the meat of their passing game, the meat of their running game. So their top 5 run concepts. We just talked about inside zone. They run inside zone, the bluff and the slam. They do the split inside zone as well. They like the outside zone, the off tackle, and the G lead, which is where you pull the backside guard. And it's a power concept. And that is something I think you'll definitely see versus Texas. And they run a sweep play. They want to get to the edges. The edges is where they make their money in the run game. If you go look at the D gaps, we're talking about right outside the tight end. A gaps are right out, both sides of the center. And B gaps are outside of the guard. All right, your C gaps outside the tackle, D gap outside tight end. All right, so the D gap though, they want to get to the edge. And if you go look at their most explosive runs, their most 10, the most 10 plus yard runs, like which gaps they've had the most 10 plus yard runs through. And if you go look at the gaps where they have had the highest rate of first downs and the highest rate of touchdowns, it's all through the D gap on either side, on the right side or the left side. The right D gap, they've had 17 10 plus yard runs, and the left D gap, they've had 12 10 plus yard runs. That's the most of any gap. A, B, C. It's the D's. All right. The double D's. All right. 40, the longest runs on the season, 46-yard run through the D gap on the right side, and a 70-yard run on the D gap on the left side. If you go look at the most forced missed tackles, the D gap on the right side, you got 18, and the D gap on the left side, you got 15 forced missed tackles. I mean, no matter what you're looking at, first downs, rushing first downs, the most rushing first downs, the two gaps that have provided the most rushing first downs in the run game for them, 18 through the D gap on the left side, 32 through the D gap on the right side. No matter what rushing stat you're looking at, the D gap. So double D. All right. Got to make sure you got that solidified. With Texas, they have great edge rushers, great edge defenders, Barron Sorrell, Ethan Burke, Trey Moore, Colin Simmons. It's going to be pivotal this week that they have gap integrity and that they keep contained, because a lot of those D gap runs are going to be the quarterback that they're trying to get on the edge. And while they're pounding the rock inside, they keep those edges. They basically keep those edges from crashing down on the interior run game, because you have to respect the quarterback on the edge. You combine that with a zone read, got to respect the quarterback on the edge. So your defensive end is not going to be able to crash down on the interior run game. And if you're Braylon Russell, you're 250 pounds, all I need to do is get 3-4 yards running downhill. And that's kind of the formula, right? And so that's going to be a challenge for Texas. They'll exit. And if you look at Florida ran outside zone on Texas with success. They ran the inside zone with success. And they ran power and they had success. Texas was conceding those yards, of course, because it was a blowout, and most of them came in the second half. So you weren't going up against the starters, and Texas' game plan wasn't trying to take that away. I totally get all of that. Still, just giving you the bare and kind of analytics that Florida had success, high success rates, over 50% running inside power, running inside zone read, and running the inside zone period. So those are things I think Arkansas will try to run too in the run game. If you look at the passing game concepts that they've had success, or at least that there are staples with that run game, they love the all verts, just 4 verts down the field. They want to clear it out so that Taylon Green, if he wants to, can have one-on-ones if he wants to scramble, which he's great at. I think they're averaging like 11 yards per scramble, and that clears things out. He also has got a big arm. According to Pro Football Focus, he has a top 12 passing grade on throws past 10 yards. Actually 15th in the country. He's 12th in passing grade overall, but 15th in passing grade on 10-plus yard throws. So he can throw it down the field, and he's got a big target, Andrew Armstrong, who's one of the best receivers in college football, actually, not just in the SEC. And he leads the SEC in 10-plus yard receptions. He leads the SEC in 20-plus yard receptions. He's a monster on the outside. He's one of those guys. So I think for Texas, for Verts, something you got to defend very well. They got big receivers too. They got receivers. Andrew Armstrong, 6'4". They have another receiver that's in the rotation, Tesla, who's about 6'4". They got Broden, who's about 6'7". These guys are great on some verts down the field. So that's something you got to watch, them trying to box you out, just kind of play, essentially just try to high point the football, and him throwing it up in a scramble drill. Also, they like the play action bootleg, suck the linebackers in with the play action fake, get the quarterback on the edge, bring the spy down, occupy the spy, and essentially occupy eyes, that second level, and then get receivers behind them, running crossing routes. Give him the option. You can throw a short intermediate completion, or you can decide to keep the football, run it, and get to the edge or get around the edge. And he's great at that. So they like the play action bootleg. They like the verts. And then short, simple concepts, right? Slant variations. Those throw a slant. You know what I mean? Simple, easy. You got leverage. We got a one-on-one, easy completion. They'll throw a stick variation, which is usually that slot or that tight end inside. They are depending on the leverage of the defender. I'm just going to run a quick, I'm going to break that out. It's a curl, kind of a quick curl. I'm going to break it out. I'm going to break it in. And everybody knows where you're going to break it depending on the leverage of the defender. Easy read for the quarterback. They're going to spread you out so they can almost engineer a one-on-one there, and easy concept if it's in a different ways to run it versus zone versus man. And then they have the drive. They like the drive concept. The drive concept is there's a shallow crossing route, and there's a deep end cut, which they call a 6 route. It's a deep end cut at about 12 to 15 yards. And then you're forcing the linebacker or that second level defender, either going to take that curl route. Take that shallow crosser, and then leave that back 6 route, that deep crossing route wide open, or you're going to drop back and you're going to defend the deeper concept, leave the shallow route wide open. So they're very simple concepts. And I think the progression is, hey, if it's not open, let's say they do defend those concepts well, then he just gets to run, which he's fine with. And he's good at too, by the way. So you're going to have a spy on him all the time, which also is going to hinder your numbers advantage to try to have in the back end. So they're a problematic offense to have to deal with because they do have so many elements that you have to account for. Armstrong on the outside, power running element with Braylon Russell and Jaquindon Jackson inside, +1 the running game with the quarterback and the zone keepers. So you got to make sure that your edges are disciplined and keep contained. It's if you obviously are not disciplined and you don't allocate resources appropriately, they can make some big plays on you, which is why they're top 5 in the country in explosive plays, 10-plus yard plays and 20-plus yard plays. It's because of that conundrum they present. All right, we come back. We got Off the Record on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some off-the-record conversation. And actually, this was actually on the record because I was doing the Third and Longhorns podcast. Shout out to my man Nick Shuley and Alex Okafor and Fozzie Whitaker, Derek Johnson, and Jeremy Hills and the crew. But Derek Johnson, my man DJ, told a story during our last taping or recording of the podcast. I didn't even know this either. My first time hearing it too. And DJ says it was his first time telling the story. So he's never told the story before because I know why. There's a bit of shame with it, but because DJ is such a great player that it didn't matter because the coaches and players, I will say they did a great job because nobody else ever told this story too. Those social people know about it. But here's Derek Johnson telling the story of how he screwed up the coin toss actually in the 2004 Texas-Arkansas game.
So 20 years ago, 2004, we played in Arkansas. You got McFadden.
Mm-hmm.
What's the tall quarterback that they
Matt
had?
Jones.
Matt Jones.
Yeah.
Woo, he was fast.
Jones.
Okay, yeah. So you had McFadden. You got all these guys, Peyton Hillis or whatnot. And we're going out there. Knew it's going to be a tough crowd or whatnot. And I'm not usually the one that's talking for the coin flip or whatnot. So I go out there. Nobody knows this, by the way. If you watch that actual TV copy, when we go out there, everybody's saying, hey, whatever you do, we want to kick the ball. That's all I'm thinking. We're gonna kick the ball. We're gonna kick the ball. All right, cool. I go out there. I'm round up. I'm ready to go. They win the toss. They deferred.
I didn't know what you're gonna say.
Listen, this happened. This happened.
You gave them the ball in the second half.
Listen, they say they just, I'm jacked up. They ready to go. Hey, what you want? Hey, we're kicking it. We're kicking it.
Oh.
They say, you kicking it?
You sure you want to
kicking
do
it. Let's go. We're kicking it this way. Coach told us this way.
Started the first and started the third.
Listen, we won the game 22-20, and I gave them an extra possession.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long was that on your mind? Like how long?
I always remember. I'm glad we won that game.
I'm saying, DJ. At what point during the actual game?
When I was going to the sideline, they was like, they won the toss. They deferred. Why are we kicking? I'm like, I thought you said kick it, coach. You said. And they were real nice about it. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I know they was pissed.
Oh, you're all American.
You can't yell at DJ.
You all American, bro.
You can't yell at DJ. Coach, anybody else
immediately
we need you in this game.
Cussing DJ out. Don't get me the ball.
And I think with
DJ focus.
Right. I think we got a turnover. Something happened for us that first drive or something like that. Something happened for the defense so it evened out. But I gave him the ball twice.
Wow.
I did.
Man, what a great way to end it.
They had 500 on it.
What the thing that happened is Texas got a safety in the first quarter, on the first drive. Like not the first drive, but the first. It was. I think it was actually the first drive. It says 14:42 in the first quarter. Arkansas safety. Texas up 2-0. So he gave him an extra
it looked
possession.
like it was a smart decision. It looked like our defense is so dominant that we're going to kick off to you and score on that possession.
That's exactly what it looked like. That is nuts. Yeah, you gave him an extra possession, but essentially Texas got it right back because they got a safety on the first
2 points
drive and 2 points. They got 2 points and so it didn't matter, but they won and they won by 2 points.
Yeah,
they won 22-20.
DJ didn't know
so that was a game. That was a game-winning point.
Game-winning safety to start the game.
Oh, you can only be as good as Derek Johnson, who's in like 5 Hall of Fames, for the football guys to shine on you like that. Because anybody else, even in your own head, I gotta look at I want to look at his stat line actually during the game and see how DJ played. I really never asked him, and I'm sure he had an amazing game because he had an amazing career. Period. But I would have been in my own head after that, like, oh no. Did I do that? Did I really give him the ball back? I imagine he was overjoyed though when they got the safety to start the game.
Oh yeah,
like he was just like, so maybe that's when it all went away. It was like, oh no, it's all good. We got the safety to start the game. But there you go. So he never told that story. I didn't even know that story. I've been knowing DJ forever. I recruited DJ actually on the recruiting visit. I hosted DJ. Did not know that story, so he's been keeping that close to the vest for a long time. All right, we come back and we'll talk more Texas, Arkansas. I want to get back to the NFL as well. We'll talk about the game tonight. We'll also get into some of the big games coming up this weekend: Chiefs and Bills. You also have the Ravens and the Steelers. We'll talk about that. Also, there's some quarterback news out there. The Anthony Richardson news that he's going to be the starting quarterback again for the Colts. We'll dive into that. We'll also get into that Caleb Williams story that some of his own teammates may have wanted him benched. Why was that the case? We'll talk about that story a little bit, and the most under the radar quarterback performance of the season. I mean, this quarterback is playing at an elite level and nobody's talking about it, but we will right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday edition of the Rodcast, and that's when my co-host, the Idealionaire, Patrick Davis, who comes up with all the musically themed days of the week, that's when he comes up with a creative theme that matters and is relevant to each and every one of us. And because he is paying tribute to the rekindling of the rivalry between Texas and Arkansas, now a conference rivalry in the SEC, and we know Arkansas hates Texas more than they love themselves. All the songs are a tribute to the hated rivalry between the two schools, and all the songs reference or refer to hatred or hate in some way, form, or fashion. So I'm sure the Arkansas fans out there that they can relate to that. So appreciate Patrick hooking us up for the musically themed day of the week. We also appreciate him hooking us up for the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the Day, which is already posted at the Horn X account at the Horn ATX. Patrick, what is the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day?
Big Fat Poll today. How many rushing yards will Texas allow to Arkansas right now? 90 to 120 is winning at 52%, 32% for 120 to 150, 14% for 0 to 90, feeling Texas is going to have a real good game defending the run. And then Arkansas finally figured out how to turn on the internet. 2.3 for 150 plus.
Yeah, okay, yeah. 150 plus. If they're 150 plus and things are going, something tells me things are going well for them. If they get to 150 plus, there'll be a different. It could play out the same way that Florida did. It could play out the same way where they get a lot of rushing yards, but they're inconsequential. It don't matter. But I think they're going to be different because Taylor Green's a different quarterback than Aiden Warner was for Florida. So I think ultimately, if their 150 will be relevant 150, like it'll be a 150 that matters if they're 150. Because if they do get down out of it, you talked about it earlier, Patrick, they get down, they still have the means to throw the football. And Aiden Warner just couldn't execute, a vertical passing game very well. And that's not ideal for Taylor Green, but Taylor Green, as I pointed out for you guys, you'll look at the passing numbers. Like I say, these are Pro Football Focus, so unbiased. They got him as the 12th best passing grade in the country, and they got him at the 15th highest passing grade on throws past 10 yards, at 92. They say the man can throw the football. I've watched him, and I do. I think he does have an impressive arm. I don't think his pocket presence is that good. I don't think he works well within the pocket. I think he wants to get outside the pocket at times, which is why he's great at scrambling and why they like to put him on those bootlegs and those waggles outside the pocket too. But there's no doubt. I mean, you got to put a spy on him. You got to put a spy or a guy on him to make sure you know exactly how you can keep him contained. Last thing you want to do is have that guy kind of running wild on the second level of your defense. All right, there you go. Topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. All right, let's get to our Horn headlines, and then we'll dive into the numbers now, which I'm sure that are pretty damning because Jerry Jones claims that the glare from the sun, which has become a hot topic of conversation, is actually an advantage. It's a home field advantage for the Dallas Cowboys. There are some numbers now that actually fly in the face of that. So we'll talk about that. We'll get into that a little bit. We'll talk about the Texans a little bit as well. They got a game coming up versus the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about all the other big games coming up this weekend. Chiefs and the Bills, Ravens and the Steelers. Got a game tonight, of course, between two NFC East foes and the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll break that down a little bit as well. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, Victor Wembanyama got his first 50-point game last night as the Spurs beat the Wizards 139-130. Chris Paul added 11 assists in the game, where Victor Wembanyama became the fourth youngest person in NBA history to score 50 points in a game. And since someone on the text line asked the other three to score quicker than Victor Wembanyama are Devin Booker, LeBron James, and Brandon Jennings, who is actually the youngest, surprisingly enough. The Rockets beat the Clippers 111-103 with Tari Eason and Amin Thompson continuing to provide big minutes off the bench, both scoring 18 points and having double-digit rebounds. Tonight, the Mavericks take on the Jazz. In college basketball, the Longhorn women took out Lamar 95-58 in another dominant performance led by Shea Holley and Justice Carlton with 15 points each. They are back in action tonight on Sunday against DePaul. And in the NFL, the Commanders face the Eagles on Thursday Night Football in a matchup for the lead in the NFC East. The Eagles have won 5 out of their last 6 matchups, but the Commanders look to turn that around after having their best start to a season since 1996. And that is your Horn Headlines.
Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Appreciate those. All right, I want to talk about a couple of NFL headlines here that I haven't had a chance to get to. So the Anthony Richardson story is a bit bizarre and came out of nowhere. Now, I know Joe Flacco hadn't played well, and they said Joe Flacco would be, or at least that's what the head coach said, that Joe Flacco would be their starting quarterback for the rest of the season after they benched Anthony Richardson. Well, not the case. After 2 games, they're now benching Joe Flacco and giving Anthony Richardson back his starting job. It makes sense to reverse course on that because what do you gain once you figure it out? Joe Flacco's not going to help lead you to a playoff appearance. Especially, I guess that's how they felt. And now they said his performance in the last 2 games had nothing to do with that, but I doubt that very seriously. I think they came to the conclusion that, well, if we're just going to be a team that doesn't make the playoffs and lose, then we need to have some benefit from the season other than, we were competitive. Like, what is the benefit of the season if we don't make the playoffs other than being a competitive product? That's not enough. And I get ownership was like, I want us to get a full evaluation of Anthony Richardson. I want us to get a full, thorough evaluation of him, not a half-assed evaluation, which is basically what they had, and say, all right, do we believe he can be the quarterback of the future? And the truth is, I don't think you'll know even after this season because he's so raw. I don't think you'll know even after this season. Yeah. It may take, I think a couple of seasons to get a true, thorough evaluation. But, it kind of reminds me of Trey Lance a little bit, and he was just so raw that, yes, I see the upside. There's no doubt. It's tremendous upside. Talking about in terms of physical gifts, you're talking about one of the most physically gifted human beings to ever play quarterback at any level. College or pro. That's what we're talking about here with Anthony Richardson. And Trey Lance was also in that, in that conversation, just physical tools, just undeniable. Like the thought of the allure and appeal of it all coming together. It was just too tempting to pass up for the 49ers. Like, man, if it all comes together, could you imagine what this offense could be with that guy operating at an elite level? And yes, that would be amazing. But what if he doesn't develop into that? What if it's just raw material and that's all? What if the raw material never ends up evolving or materializing into that finished, refined product, which is what happened with Trey Lance? They're like, yeah, it never happened. Yeah. Let's go get Mr. Irrelevant and let him run damn offense, and it works because quarterbacks also this you can't really predict. It's the toughest to predict and project and to develop. And I think this is a very simple situation. I don't know what's going to become of Anthony Richardson, but I know these stories usually don't end well.
No, and I mean, there's something, this happens a lot in basketball, like a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's the guy who was so physically dominant, he's always dominated every level he's played at. Until you get to a point where now that is no longer enough of an edge. And guys will get through college and get to the pros, and then all of a sudden, no, man, you have to work hard. You can't just kind of half-ass playing the game anymore. This has to be an everyday thing where you are working to get better every single day. Just practicing isn't enough. Just doing what you're told to do is not going to be enough to reach the levels that you're supposed to reach. You're the starting quarterback for a franchise. You're supposed to be the one going above and beyond every single day. That's how you get to be great. And if you're not willing to do that, and sometimes they don't know how to do it, so, you have to sometimes help out, especially really young guys. They don't know how to work out properly. They don't know how to go out into the gym and work because they've never been pushed to do it before. They were always just treated away. Look, you're going to get us wins because you're that much more dominant. So you have a young guy come in and then you throw a lot at him. for an Anthony Richardson, it's now, okay, are you willing to actually go above and beyond now that you've been kind of figured out and people know how to defend you, and it's no longer where you can just beat people because you're the best. You have to now work to be even better because now you're playing with all the best.
I know. And think about it. It kind of reminds me of the late, great Mike Leach quote. He always said, I'd rather take a shortstop and turn him into a quarterback rather than take a QB with all the physical tools, but he's not accurate.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'll teach him to be accurate. And it's like, you know how tough that is. And Josh Allen really screwed everybody up on that because that happened to Josh Allen. He was not accurate in college and now has evolved into an accurate passer in the NFL. That is the exception and not the rule. Usually, if you ain't got accuracy, you just ain't got it. You just ain't got it. And you don't develop it, especially at the highest levels. Anthony Richardson, he was a freak in college. He wasn't accurate. He played less than 60% of his passes in college. He never completed more than 60% of his passes. He wasn't accurate. Neither was Josh Allen. But then the Josh Allen, I think, blueprint has really distorted a lot of people's, I think, evaluation of QBs. Like, no. They wanted him to be the next Josh Allen, pretty much.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody wants.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
but that's the one that worked out. Usually they don't work out like that. That's not just the exception.
No, limited playing time, limited experience, and then, being able to figure it out. But that's also, he had a really good coach in Brian Daboll that worked really well with him.
He had a really good coach in Daboll.
That was an offensive coordinator, so it wasn't even a head coach. He had an offensive coordinator that could work with him a lot more and figure out what he did and build into his game. And then I think Josh Allen just went in and found the right ways to work on it. Because it's not even just effort all the time. Like, you can go to the gym and work out all day long and see no results if you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's not just about the guy having the drive to go and wake up at 4:30 in the morning and be the first one there and the last one to leave. It's about understanding how to work on your game. We saw Sam Ellinger talking about it a season ago or so about going into work with different guys about his mechanics and trying to get his throwing arm better. There's, you have to be able to work with so many different people. And in season for an Anthony Richardson, you just kind of want to get reps at this point, but there's not much you can do to fix a lot of your problems in the middle of a season. And hopefully sitting back and watching some of it makes you a little bit more aware of what's going on in the game. But as far as accuracy is concerned, that's not going to get better in 3 weeks that he was benched.
No, like I said, and I'll say, Jalen Hurts is kind of another example. Jalen Hurts wasn't as inaccurate as some of these other quarterbacks, but he's another guy that actually got more accurate as he got more time in the NFL. I think the first of these types of evaluations was Mike Vick, right? It had to be Mike Vick because Mike Vick wasn't. I don't think he was a 60% completion percentage quarterback coming out of college. And I want to say in the NFL, I think there was one time. Yeah, he had one. No, he had two. Actually, he had one season where he actually got over 60% completion percentage. He had 2 seasons where he got at or over 60% completion percentage as a player. Mike Vick never got higher than that. He was below 60% in every season he played except for 2.
And that's also, you have to remember, that's a different time where.
No, I know it's a different time. My point is, it's the same thing though. My point is a similar example of a freakish athlete. You're looking at the upside of the skill set, and then the falling in love with the possibility. It all comes together. And my point is that when it comes together, that's the exception, not the rule. First of all, quarterback, period, becoming a success and hitting on the quarterback is all the exception, not the rule. And then on top of that, you add the element of they're not naturally an accurate passer. You want to develop that aspect of their game on top of having them actually work out as being a franchise quarterback. That's a lot to ask.
No, and when I say
it's kind of a lot to ask for.
Yeah, and when I'm saying it's a different time, I know it's a different time. I'm saying for these scouts and stuff who are going in and go, well, we'll get a mobile quarterback, and that gives us half a battle. When Michael Vick was a mobile quarterback, how many mobile quarterbacks were there in the league?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. You're right.
So
that
defenses were not built. Advantage. Defenses were not built for that. And if you tried to build it, you were building it just to beat them, and then it would mean that every other pocket quarterback could tear you apart because now all your guys are just speed guys and they can't go and play. They don't play well in coverage. So, now is today's game. You have to be ready to cover a mobile quarterback. Half the league's quarterbacks are mobile quarterbacks. So it's not quite the schematic advantage that it was when Michael Vick was playing, because at that point, man, no one else can do what you're doing. Now half the league does what you do. So now what's your other part that you bring to the game? And he just hasn't been able to figure that out yet. And I don't know at this point, it's not going to get better this season. Really, it's not going to get much better. I don't know what 3-4 weeks off gets you. So,
but I think they want to see him.
Yeah.
They want to see the stuff. It's about the stuff on the field. Of course, you want to see that improvement, because you're right. I don't know how much you're going to improve with accuracy and something, but his pocket presence, his awareness, right? The way he prepares. We don't know how he prepares, but maybe they want to see, let's see if he actually, after being benched, if his preparation changes. If he starts getting up here an hour earlier, starts staying an hour later, right? If he starts staying in the film room more with the coaches, I think they want to see it all around. It may not show on the field, but they may see enough in the locker room and off the field that this kind of transformed his mentality as a player. And maybe that's what they're looking for too. There could be a lot. I think that they're trying to evaluate here.
And I'm sure
I like the move though, because they don't win either way. You're not going to win. You're not going to get to a playoff. So why not gain something? And the gain would be, let's see what we got.
And I think you have to kind of get the taste out of people's mouth about what his last performance was. That if you pull him out in that, and the last performance he had was him tapping out of a game.
Oh, forgot about that.
If that's kind of the last image going in the offseason, then the fan base, there's going to be a lot of people around the organization that are like, why do you have this guy? He's a loser. And you want to at least bring back and get him a couple more wins on the season where he just kind of wills you to a win, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
And so I think if you have that, the image will change a little bit. Then you had to pull the guy out for an aging Joe Flacco because he tapped himself out of he pulled himself out of a game on a major third down.
Yeah. And man, I guess you could argue that the benching was a punishment almost, without telling them nah, man, you can't do that. Not in the league. That's part of being quarterback. You can't do that.
No, you don't want it enough to be the starting quarterback right now, because who does that?
I didn't do it at cornerback. Definitely didn't do it at quarterback. It's like, no, I'm with you. We might get a penalty because coach put somebody on the field. He's like, come off. I'm like, nah, you go off. you go. All right. Another quarterback story. I saw this one too. We know that Shane Waldron has been fired as the Bears offensive coordinator. And strangely enough, this is how you know Matt Eberflus has bad taste in offensive coordinators. The two offensive coordinators that have been fired so far this season, because the Raiders fired theirs too.
Yeah.
Luke Getsy. He used to be the offensive coordinator with the Bears before Shane Waldron. So the two offensive coordinators have been fired already. Were both Matt Eberflus hires. Dude, you need to let somebody else hire your offensive coordinator. He's a defensive guy, and defensive guys, sometimes they just can't figure out the offensive side of the ball. Even hiring the right offensive guy can be a struggle. But how about this one? Mark Silverman of Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000, who covers the Bears. He posted this piece of insight on Twitter. He said, after talking to a few people with knowledge of the situation, players went to Coach Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles, the GM, asking them to make a change at offensive coordinator. The players the one to ask for it.
Yeah, not surprising.
And it said a number of players who lobbied for change wasn't specified. They didn't talk about who it was. He also said that the Silverman's tweet also said there have also been a few veteran players requesting Badgett starts, who is the backup to Caleb Williams as well.
I can tell you those are defensive players.
Probably could be.
There's no one on the offense that wanted Badgett to start. He's a decent player, but nobody wanted.
DJ. It wasn't a wide receiver. They're like, no, hell no, we good.
Good. Give me the guy who I know can be great.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. But I didn't realize. I went back and looked at some of the numbers for Caleb Williams this season to see like how he's playing, because now the conversation is, was it the system that was obviously doing him no favors, and it was essentially hurting his development and progress as a player? Or is it just that Caleb Williams is playing so bad they need to bring somebody in that can kind of stop the bleeding and figure out the best way to maximize his skill set, right? And find an offense that's compatible with him. Or maybe it's a little bit of both. Caleb Williams has the worst completion percentage on throws of 15 plus yards by any quarterback in the NFL in the last 15 years.
Ooh.
468 out of 468.
That is not good.
Yeah. Turns out some of his metrics are actually worse than like the Zach Wilson first year as a starter. And even Justin Fields, when they first started out, they were so disastrous. If you look at catchable throw rate, and this is all quarterbacks we talk about all quarterback seasons in their fantasy points database history. So they're going back since 2021, basically. So you got 3-4 years of a sample size here, or there this year included, and it has Bryce Young at 100, and he was at 105 in catchable throw rate. All right, in 2023, Zach Wilson in 2021 was 104th in catchable throw rate. Justin Fields in 2022 was 103rd. You get my point, right? These really disastrous starts for the rookie quarterbacks. Caleb Williams is at 106th in catchable throw rate. Going to their database, he's worse than Zach Wilson and Bryce Young and Justin Fields when they first unveiled those guys as starters. And you can look at pressure to sack ratio since 2021. Justin Fields is 103rd. Remember, we talked about him being the most sacked quarterback in history, looking at pressure to sack ratio. Caleb Williams is 104th. He's behind Justin Fields. Jeez. Guys, his season, you can argue in a lot of ways, has started out worse than Zach Wilson's rookie year and worse than Justin Fields' rookie year and worse than Bryce Young's rookie year. And those are some of the worst rookie campaigns in history. It's crazy. So there are some people that believe, no, it's Caleb Williams. Like it ain't. I don't think it's that. I got to go watch him more. Some people are saying, no, it's Caleb, dude. It's not it's Caleb. And some people are saying, no, it's the offense. We played the audio of Jackson Smith-Njigba when he still is, but during Shane Waldron's time with Seattle, and they asked Jackson Smith-Njigba on a Chicago sports station, hey, tell the people what they can expect from Shane Waldron. And there's like crickets, silence for like 6 or 7 seconds. And then he says, are we live? Are we live?
Then he says,
and then
he's a good guy.
He's a good he's a good guy, man. He's a good guy. I've learned a lot from him. That's the route he went. Not that Shane Waldron's. And then he said, good luck. He said, good luck with that. Good luck. Good luck with that. So it seems like for a while, everybody kind of pointed out, and you look at Matt Eberflus's hiring record of offensive coaches, that don't look good either. So I think it's got to be Shane Waldron. There's no way Caleb Williams is that bad. He may be bad. He may not be good. I'm not saying that he may not ever live up to being the number 1 overall pick. But to say that his rookie season now is looking like it's worse in some analytical metrics, worse than Bryce Young's rookie season, or worse than Justin Fields or Zach Wilson's rookie season, that's crazy. That I cannot fathom. But like I said, I haven't watched them a lot. I watched them in that Texans game. He didn't look great, but they were finding ways to win in spite of him. But that is shocking. So there's some players, they wanted him benched, and the players, they were like, you got to get rid of Shane Waldron. To me, that says Matt Eberflus, dude, pretty soon they're going to go to Ryan Poles. About you.
They have to already, because it's not good that you have guys in the pressers like DJ Moore coming out and saying that it's somebody else's fault, and it's not good when you have players. You're supposed to have a ship that's run by somebody, but it feels like everyone's trying to figure out their way to run the ship, which means you don't have a captain. Mm-hmm. So who's supposed to be the captain?
El Capitan.
That guy might need to go.
Oh, he definitely is going to go. And this is the thing. And the Bears is the worst part about it. The Bears, they keep repeating the wrong kind of history. They always say, like, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. They're repeating it. Think about it. They had John Fox, who was their head coach, right?
Yeah.
And he was a lame duck coach with a first-year rookie quarterback that they drafted. Right? They drafted a quarterback, and he was their head coach at the time. And everybody knew, oh, man, this guy's kind of a lame duck coach, not going to work out. And they fired him, like everybody thought, after his first year, right, as a lame duck coach. and then they brought in Matt Nagy. All right, and then Matt Nagy, he has Justin Fields, right? He has Justin Fields for I don't know how long, right? For just a little while, I think, and he ended up being a lame duck coach during Justin Fields' first year, and then they fired him, and now they have another lame duck coach during their rookie quarterback's first year. It's the same thing. That's like, how can they keep doing that? They over and over again. They keep drafting up. They'll draft a quarterback high, and they'll leave a lame duck head coach in place for that highly drafted rookie quarterback. And they've done it now 3 times in a row. That's nuts. And they end up firing the guy, and they're going to fire Eberflus. That's going to be the 3rd time in a row they've done it. Drafted a quarterback really high, leave him with a lame duck coach. Everybody knows they're going to fire that lame duck coach. As soon as they say, "Oh yeah, he's going to be here for the year," I was like, when they said Matt Eberflus would be the coach there for Caleb Williams' first year, I was like, "Excuse me, what? Are you serious?
Like, why?
Why would you do that?" Right? And they did it, and then now they're going to fire the head coach.
Yeah, that one felt like because Eberflus, that was the one of they waited too long, and then he went
on the coaching carousel,
and he went, "Well, guys, you gotta move on from that." And they didn't do it in time, and then it became too late to do it. But yeah, it really feels as if that nobody. I like kind of like the Cowboys, where there's nobody there who goes. I'm less worried. My contract means I'll be here next year, or at least I'll get paid next year, whether I'm here or not. But I do not feel like I'll have any retribution from Eberflus, because what's he going to do? He's out of here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think they all know he's gone, which is also why you said no. Right, there doesn't seem to be a captain leading the ship. Yeah. I think they all know he's gone. It's like, so what? I can say what I want to say to the media. I can do what I want to do.
Yeah. Who's gonna? Oh, you gonna punish me? Whatever.
Yeah, I can go to the GM right now because
I got a 4-year contract. What are you gonna
do? You're gone, buddy. Yeah, like I said, it's amazing though. Mr. Trubisky, they draft him, leave him with his first year. He's with a lame duck head coach. Then they fire him and do the same thing when they draft Justin Fields. Leave him with a lame duck Matt Nagy, and then they do the same thing with Caleb Williams, leave him with a lame duck Eberflus. Unbelievable. Yeah, and you see why bad teams stay bad. They just do. All right, they make generational bad decisions organizationally. All right. I want to hear one other story. We'll do that on the other side in Rod's rant. The most under the radar quarterback performance so far this season. We'll get you that. We'll also talk about the game coming up tonight between the Commanders and the Eagles. Give you a couple of nuggets about the best games of the weekend, Chiefs and the Bills. Also get into discussion about the other big game, the Ravens and the Steelers. We'll talk about that. I got a nugget about the Texans this year. And these stats disprove Jerry's belief, or at least Jerry's statement, that the glare from the sun is indeed a home field advantage for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll discuss all that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Let's get into some of the big games coming up this weekend. I'll just give you a couple of nuggets about some of the games coming up this weekend. Let's talk about the Ravens and the Steelers. And it's one of those stats that sounds fake. But in the few starts that I think it's 4 starts that Lamar Jackson has made against the Steelers over the past 5 seasons, the Ravens are 1-3 against the Steelers with Jackson in the lineup. He has 10 turnovers in those 4 games. 7 of those turnovers were interceptions. And the Steelers are the only team where Lamar Jackson has thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. And I told you, they got the formula. They got it. Not a lot of people have the formula. Nobody in NFC has it because it hadn't made its way to the NFC yet. What is Lamar Jackson's record versus the NFC? Wasn't it like 22-1 or something like that? But remember I said you have to play him, if you play him twice a year, then great. But you got to play him a couple of times every, 3 or 4 years, whether it be in the playoffs or the regular season, to really get, I was like inoculated right there. Right. You almost want to get, because once you get exposure to him, then because Sean McVay talked about this. He said it takes you like a half just to adapt to how explosive and how elusive and that kind of world-class speed at quarterback, because you just don't see it very often. You see it with Michael Vick, but not combined with the pocket passing prowess of Lamar Jackson. Nobody's done that. Not Steve Young. Nobody's done that. So he said it took us like a half to get used to playing him. He said, and after that, my defense got used to it. He said by then, a lot of the damage had already been done. But think about if you play them twice a year, if Sean McVay's right, it took them a half to get used to it. You already are pretty much acclimated. You're well adjusted to Lamar Jackson's freakishness from the pocket. And I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have almost, it's not an immunity to it, but they've been immunized, right, when it comes to Lamar Jackson. So it doesn't shell shock them. It doesn't overwhelm them. They got the formula. He's 25-1 versus the NFC, by the way. They don't have the recipe. They don't have the formula. They don't have the immunity that some teams in the AFC have because they faced them enough and they've had time to acclimate to it. But that to me is the craziest that he's been that bad. That the only team where he's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns against is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when he was asked, "Hey, what's up, man? I mean, you're great. You're about to win your 3rd MVP before you're 30 years old. Why can't you figure out the Steelers who you're in the same division with?" He says, "I don't know. It's a different team right now, different guys last year. It's a different unit this year, but it's always the same goal. We want to win. We want to be the ones that come out victorious, and that's going to be the goal going into this game." Still, so it's, I would love to pick the Ravens. It is a different Ravens team. I mean, this Ravens team will be the first Ravens team where Lamar Jackson doesn't have to be the leading rusher since I think 2019. He's been a leading rusher for them every year and the leading passer for them every year since like 2019. So maybe this is a little different, but Steelers are playing some of the best football. They are playing their best football they played all season. And they see Mike Tomlin has the formula. And he doesn't share it with the rest of the league on how to beat Lamar Jackson. Isn't that crazy? How? I don't know how he does that. Okay, the other, we'll talk about that obviously some more, but the other big game, you got the Bills versus the Chiefs. Now, I don't know how this is the case, and I've been telling you guys, anytime you find Patrick Mahomes as an underdog, I believe he still is. Now, it was at 2 points yesterday, so it's close to even, something like that now, so I'm not sure. But Patrick Mahomes as an underdog, guys, you got to take it. You got to take that. Mahomes as an underdog, he is 11-3 straight up as an underdog, 12-1-1 against the spread, best straight up mark as a dog in the Super Bowl era for a QB with at least 10 starts. His only against the spread loss as an underdog came in 2022 at home against Josh Allen and the Bills. I'll say it. Losing 24-20 as a 2.5-point dog, but the man does not lose very often as a dog. 25-10 straight up, 26-8-1 against the spread in his career as a favorite of 3 or fewer points. So that won't flip, I don't think, by the time the kickoff happens. They'll still be an underdog or be a push. Yeah, so they'll still be an underdog. I'll take Mahomes as a dog, man. All day, every day, and twice on Sunday.
I mean, until somebody figures out how to stop this clutch gene that they got, where they just keep winning.
They do.
Like last week was still so ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, the blocked field goal. Like, come on, man. How often does that happen at the NFL level? Blocked field goal, a game winner,
a game-winning block field goal,
not just a casual one in the first quarter.
Come on. Stay undefeated.
To stay undefeated. Oh, you want to hear a stat about their undefeated status? Here, I'll give you one real quick because we'll talk about this tomorrow. Because I'm putting together a piece for tomorrow about the Kansas City Chiefs. But here's one: since 1970, right, NFL merger, the average 9-0 team has had a point differential of plus 122. So they're 9-0. They're balling. They're killing teams. Meaning it has won its typical game by over 13 points. Actually, 13.6 points per game. Average margin of victory for 9-0 teams in the Super Bowl era. The Chiefs, they don't have a single win by anything close to that. They are plus 58 point differential. It is the worst for any undefeated team through the first 9 games. For any undefeated team, any 9-0 team, they have the worst point differential for any 9-0 team in the Super Bowl era. Yeah. So it's they're not necessarily great. They're just clutch, man. They're not great. They're just clutch. Matter of fact, how about this? To show how clutch they are, and we know they got the most clutch quarterback in the NFL when it comes to fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives and being down double digits in one-score games. Goes without saying. I can give you all those numbers, but I've given you them before. He's the most clutch quarterback in that regard. But how about this to show you how they are from on a kind of a down-to-down basis, how he's also clutch, not just in the macro, but the micro? If you look at EPA per play, the Chiefs are 18th in first and second down on EPA per play. But if you look at third and fourth down, they're first. They are converting a league high 54% of their third and fourth downs. Best in the league. But on first and second down, they're just average. But when it's time, when we actually have to flip the switch, they are flipping the switch on everybody. They flip it in the fourth quarter. They're top 5 in scoring in the fourth quarter. They really are. It's amazing what the Chiefs are doing right now. I don't know how long they keep it up, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow because I'm putting together some stats about that. Okay, real quick, let me give you these stats about Jerry Jones, who pointed out that they played 58 games at AT&T Stadium in what they call the sun slot. That's where you get the glare of the sun at its most prominent, 3 to 7 p.m. All right. That's when the sun sets and you get that glare that you see all the beautiful pictures of, but also that players and coaches have been complaining about for years. So you had 58 games in that sun slot. Of those, 38 came against teams who finished 500 or better. So good teams. All right. Not bad teams. Those are what we're looking at. So out of those 38 games where you played against a good team, 500 or better, in the sun time slot, your Dallas Cowboys are 12-26 at AT&T Stadium at Jerry World during the sun time slot with 3 to 7 p.m., 3 to 7 p.m., and against good teams who are 500 or better. So that number would say it is not an advantage for the home team, as Jerry Jones has stated and hopes that it is, that in fact, maybe it's not an advantage at all. It actually could be considered a disadvantage potentially. Pro Football Reference pointed out there have been 131 games at AT&T Stadium, 20, and if you look at the 35 home games they kick off between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., Cowboys are 24-11. If you look at the 38 home games where they kick off time after 7 p.m., Cowboys are 24-14 at AT&T Stadium. But if you look at the games in the sun slot window, all right, the prime time for the glare of the sun to shine on the field, Cowboys 29-29 in 58 home games with a kickoff time between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Just as Jerry Jones said, 58 games, but you're a 500 team. And that is not enough motivation for him to put the damn curtains up.
Nope.
That'd be enough motivation. Anybody's like, oh, yeah, we losing games or something? Oh, put the curtains up during the game. Put the curtains up. They're not up every game. You only got a couple of games, 3-4 games a year or something like that. Maybe that's going to be with the sun's glare. So it's okay, Jerry. But Jerry, damn, he likes those pictures. They are pretty, though. You ever see those pictures? They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're great.
Like the sun,
they're great. I mean, you
like
have to blot out the score. You can't put the score into it right now. Blur that out. Other than that, it's fine.
That was good. Well done. I think we're going to end on a high note there. That was good. You got to flat out the score. All right, there you go. We'll come right back. We'll play Who Said That on the other side. That's where Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world. And based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that. We'll play that on the Rodcast when we come back right here on the Rodcast on the Horn with featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming right back at you. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a New Theme Thursday edition of the Rodcast, and that's when my co-host, Patrick Davis, the Ideallionaire on the show, that's when he decides to come up with a brand new creative theme for the show, which is usually relevant for some reason or another, and this one is indeed relevant because the theme is devoted and a tribute to the rekindling of the Texas-Arkansas rivalry, now conference rivals in the SEC, and because Arkansas hates Texas more than they love themselves. Well, that's why the new theme for New Theme Thursday has to do with hatred. All the songs refer to hatred or reference hatred or hate in some way, form, or another. So we appreciate Patrick hooking us up there. He also hooks us up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. He wants to know how many rushing yards will Texas allow to Arkansas coming up this weekend, and 56% of you took the survey say between 90 and 120 rushing yards will be allowed by the Texas defense versus Arkansas. And another 31% of you say between 120 and 150 rushing yards for Arkansas in that game versus that Texas defense. All right, it's time to get to Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that.
Outside of the fans watching and all the eyes on you, I'm sure the most important ones are your family. Your kids are out here. Everyone's coming in to see you on Friday. What does it mean to have family with you?
Well, it's the family's everything. But my kids, to my children, I'm nobody. But that night, they're going to find out their father's very special.
Ooh, that's Mike Tyson. That is, talking about he's gonna earn. He's talking about his kids. Talking about his kids gonna learn who he is.
To them, I'm a nobody, but then they're gonna find out I'm special.
Man, he says he's a nobody. Man, I can say that's scary. Even when Mike Tyson talks like that, it's kind of scary to me. They do expect BetMGM said we expect the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight to be the most bet on boxing match in BetMGM history. Bettors want to see Paul get knocked out and love Tyson as an underdog. The book will be rooting for Paul to win. So the casinos versus the people, because the casinos, they want Jake Paul to win, but the people, we want Mike to win. That's going to be fun. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. Thanks, Patrick, for everything you do. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.